Chapter 16. Of the three madams of the Chu clan, the first madam came from a large clan, and the second madam was the daughter of the head of the Tongzhou Prefecture's opening mountain martial arts school, Ding Kaishan. Only the third madam didn't have any background, and was only the daughter of a small merchant. She was able to marry Chu Zongguang purely because of her youth and beauty. However, the only good thing about this third madam was that she was smart. She knew that her family background was not good, so she did not fight for it. In the end, it was the second madam who took the initiative to win her over. At this time, second foreign arrived at Chu Shang's courtyard. Third foreign immediately came out and welcomed her with a smile. "Elder sister, why didn't you tell me in advance that you were coming here today?" Chu Shang followed behind third madam and respectfully called her second madam. The second madam nodded and pulled him into the room. She said lightly, "It's just a casual chat. There's no need to say it in advance. By the way, the shops under Shang are not bad, right? Is it enough?" Third madam's expression changed. She hurriedly said, "Shang's shops are all inns and restaurants. They don't have much income. Apart from the money he gave to the family, he doesn't have much money left. However, Shang doesn't want to compete for the position of heir, so this little bit of income is just right." Seeing that the third madam seemed to have misunderstood her, the second madam smiled and said, "Sister, you misunderstood me. I didn't mean it that way. Shang is still young. Even if he doesn't want to compete for the position of the family head, he should still have some businesses that are more profitable. Just like what you said, the businesses in Shang's hands are not very profitable." Third madam in Chu Shang's eyes lit up. Third madam's expression did not change as she said, "But the Chu family's business is limited. Master has already given Chu Shang those shops. If I go and ask for more, it would be too ungrateful." The second madam stood up and said, "No matter what master wants, he can exchange it with others. I heard that Chu Xiu's caravan has been making good profits recently. The profits of the caravan have even doubled under his leadership." After saying that, the second madam turned around and left. She believed that the other party would understand what she meant. After second madam left, third madam and Chu Shang looked at each other. Both of them seemed to have made up their minds. Third madam did not have any background, and Chu Shang was too young, so it was not up to them to compete. However, they did not fight for it because they could not compete with the eldest son of the Chu clan, nor could they compete with the third son of the Chu clan. But for Chu Xiu, who had no background and was not liked by Chu Zongguang, they could still fight for him. The next morning, Chu Xiu was practicing his saber in his courtyard. The Azure Dragon Sleeve was the simplest saber technique, but after repeated practice, it had almost become an instinct. Of course, Chu Xiu did not know the specifics of its power. The path of martial arts was the path of killing. If one did not kill, how could one train a true killing technique? At this moment, someone knocked on the door. He opened the door and saw an old man standing outside. "Second young master, master is calling for you." The person who came was Housekeeper Chen. Chu Xiu also knew that Housekeeper Chen was Chu Zongguang's personal housekeeper. Although he did not care about the specific affairs, his status in the Chu clan was much higher than that of Housekeeper Lu. Moreover, this Housekeeper Chen treated Chu Xiu very politely. In Chu Xiu's memory, when he was in the Chu clan, the elders and granduncles of the Chu clan, as well as housekeepers like Housekeeper Lu, were all very arrogant towards him. Only this Housekeeper Chen would call him second young master every time he saw Chu Xiu. In return for a plum, Chu Xiu was also very polite to this Housekeeper Chen. He nodded and said, "Housekeeper Chen, please wait a moment, I will change my clothes." After changing his clothes, Chu Xiu followed Housekeeper Chen to Chu Zongguang's residence. However, on the way, Housekeeper Chen suddenly said, "Second young master, I hope that second young master can calm down when master says something." Speaking up to hear, Housekeeper Chen sighed. Chu Zongguang's actions were indeed a bit excessive. But the Chu clan was like this, there was no such thing as fairness. He was just worried that this second young master's character was a bit extreme. If he did something that he shouldn't do in Chu Zongguang's residence, then it would be bad. Hearing Housekeeper Chen's words, Chu Xiu immediately knew that this time, nothing good would come out of it. However, Chu Xiu still smiled and nodded. Thank you for your reminder, Housekeeper Chen. I know what I'm doing. After his rebirth, the memories of his two lives merged. Naturally, the memories of his previous life, Chu Xiu, took the initiative. But this life's memories also affected his character. In his previous life, Chu Xiu's character tended to be gloomy and calm. He did things with a plan, and he also saw things very clearly. But in this life, Chu Xiu's character was cowardly and reckless. This character didn't affect Chu Xiu. On the contrary, in the Nanshan mining area, Chu Xiu was infected with a tyrannical and crazy character. This changed the current Chu Xiu's character. For example, the Li family's Li Tong provoked Chu Xiu. As a result, Chu Xiu didn't hesitate to stab him to death. Afterwards, Chu Xiu didn't feel the slightest bit of discomfort. Of course, even if Chu Xiu's character was mixed with a bit of tyrannical and crazy character, he still had the confidence to suppress it. At the critical moment, it wouldn't ruin things. Chu Xiu was led into Chu Zongguang's study by Housekeeper Chen. At this time, in addition to Chu Zongguang, the fourth prince, Chu Shang, was also present. I've seen father. Chu Xiu gave Chu Zongguang a salute. On his side, Chu Shang also cupped his hands towards Chu Xiu. With a respectful look on his face, Chu Shang said, I've seen second brother. Chu Xiu's eyes narrowed. Ever since he was a child, his fourth brother had only called him second brother a few times. Seeing Chu Xiu arrive, Chu Zongguang coughed and said, Sit down. I called you here today because I want to discuss something with you. Chu Xiu cupped his hands and said, What is it, father? Please speak. Chu Zongguang said, Recently, your caravan has been developing very well. I didn't expect you to grow a lot in the Nanshan mining area. Regardless of whether you become the successor of my Chu family in the future, you will certainly be the cornerstone of my Chu family. Therefore, you two brothers must be harmonious and help each other. Chu Xiu secretly frowned. Chu Zongguang's words were a bit strange. How could Chu Zongguang not know about the situation between them? Harmonious brothers? Looking at their current appearance, it was as if they were about to stab each other face to face. However, thinking like this in his heart, Chu Xiu still nodded and said, What father says is correct. Chu Zongguang nodded and said, It's good that you can think like this. It's like this. Although Chu Shang is still young, he should also gain some experience. Last time, you personally led a caravan to the Yan Empire. This was very good. Chu Shang now wants to learn from your second brother and lead a caravan to gain experience. Therefore, I want to exchange your caravan with Chu Shang's shop and let your fourth brother take care of the caravan. A haze appeared in Chu Xiu's eyes. No wonder Housekeeper Chen told him to calm down. His father's bias was too obvious. When the caravan was in danger, Chu Shang didn't go. When the profits were low, Chu Shang also didn't go. When the caravan was safe and unimpeded, Chu Shang was ready to let Chu Shang go. This act of plucking peaches was too ugly. To the side, Housekeeper Chen also nervously looked at Chu Xiu, afraid that he wouldn't be able to control his anger and explode on the spot. But contrary to Housekeeper Chen's expectations, Chu Xiu was only silent for a moment. Then he raised his head and smiled. Since father has already made your decision, then fine. I'll let fourth brother take care of the caravan. Chu Zongguang nodded with satisfaction. He wanted stability in everything. What he hated the most was his son going against his will. Seeing Chu Xiu being so tactful, Chu Zongguang said, Seeing you two brothers in harmony, I'm satisfied. How about this? All of Chu Shang's shops are inns and restaurants. I'll also give you a weapon shop and let you manage them together. Chu Zongguang then turned to Chu Shang and said, Although the caravan is yours, you are still young. You must learn with an open mind. How about this? When the caravan leaves, I'll have Lin Qian go with you. A cold light flashed in Chu Xiu's eyes. Lin Qian was one of the Chu clan's two strongest retainers. He was at the blood condensation realm. Normally, he was only responsible for guiding a few of the Chu clan's disciples in their cultivation. Back then, Shangmang Mountain was incomparably dangerous, but Chu Zongguang had only told him to be careful. Now, it was Chu Shang who had blood condensation retainers to protect him. They were both his sons, but the difference was not small. Of course, Chu Xiu didn't feel it was unfair. In his heart, he had never considered Chu Zongguang his father. Even the memories of his previous life were the same. Towards Chu Zongguang, there was only fear. Moreover, within the Chu clan, only Chu Shang could enjoy this kind of treatment. Chu Kai and Chu Xing were not much better off than him. Chu Shang's eyes revealed a proud expression. He first bowed to Chu Zongguang and said, "Many thanks, father." Then he specially cupped his hands towards Chu Xiu and said, "Many thanks, second brother." Chu Xiu raised his eyebrows and indifferently said, "It's nothing. It's just that the trade route is rugged. Fourth brother, you should be a bit more careful." After saying this, Chu Xiu directly said his goodbyes and left. But his eyes revealed a cold light. Whether it was his previous life or this life, what he hated the most was people stealing his things. Chapter 17. The change from second young master Chu Xiu to fourth young master Chu Shang as the manager of the caravan surprised the people of the Chu family, but they soon understood. Everyone in the Chu family knew that the master favored the fourth young master the most, but the people of the caravan felt a bit awkward. Although Chu Xiu had only been in charge of the caravan for a short period of time, Chu Xiu still had quite a bit of prestige in the caravan. The managers who wanted to oppose Chu Xiu in the past had already been killed by Chu Xiu. The remaining people of the caravan had a very simple mindset: as long as the treatment was good enough, they would be satisfied. Chu Xiu gave them more rewards than before, and after Chu Xiu no longer moved with the caravan, he promoted a few more managers. These people were also very free. As long as they didn't do anything behind the scenes, Chu Xiu wouldn't make things difficult for them. Now that someone had suddenly changed, they were not used to it. At this time, in the courtyard where the people of the caravan were resting, a slightly protruding monkey-like man approached a man wearing a short robe and asked, "Brother Lu, I heard that our caravan will be managed by the fourth young master in the future. What do you think?" This Brother Lu's full name was Lu Yuqing. When Chu Xiu took over the caravan, this guy was the first to jump out and oppose Chu Xiu, but when he heard that the treatment of the caravan would increase, he was the first to surrender. Although he was a bit two-faced, he was still very clever, so he was promoted by Chu Xiu to be the manager of the caravan. He was also an old member of the caravan, and had a good relationship with everyone, so he wouldn't suddenly become arrogant just because he was promoted. Hearing the servant's question, Lu Yuqing shook his head and said, "Don't ask what you shouldn't ask. Don't you know the matters of the young masters? The second young master is good to us, but how can we go against the fourth young master? Just do your work honestly, don't think too much about useless things." Just as he finished speaking, the door to the courtyard was pushed open, and Chu Shang walked in with a few attendants. Behind him was a man in his 40s. He was dressed in a blue warrior suit and had a long sword at his waist. His expression was cold. He was the retainer of the Chu family, Lin Qian. His status in the Chu family was very high, even higher than some of the elders of the Chu family. Although some of the Chu family's elders were in the blood condensation realm, they had long since become too old to fight. It was only because they were Chu Zongguang's seniors that they were able to sit in the elder's position. But this Lin Qian was a blood condensation martial artist in the prime of his life. It was said that he came from a small sect and roamed Jianghu in his early years. Later, he was recruited by the Chu family and became a retainer. He had already stayed in the Chu family for many years. Even Chu Shang respectfully called him Uncle Lin. Seeing Chu Xiu walk in, Lu Yuqing and the other two caravan managers promoted by Chu Xiu immediately came over and saluted, "Greetings, fourth young master." Chu Shang nodded and said lightly, "Are all the caravan's people here?" Lu Yuqing nodded and said, "They're all here." "That's good. Tell everyone to pack up and prepare to leave tomorrow." Lu Yuqing was startled. "Fourth young master, we just came back yesterday. According to the rules, we should rest for 3 days before leaving." Chu Shang frowned. Every time the caravan returns, they need to rest. During those few days of rest, they can go to the Yan Kingdom again every month. Tell everyone to prepare now and set off tomorrow. Lu Yuqing bitterly smiled, "But fourth young master, people are not made of iron. The trade route in Shangmang Mountain is hard to travel on, and there are all kinds of snakes and rats. If we don't rest for a while, we really won't be able to endure. That's why second young master told us to rest for 3 days. Hearing Lu Yuqing mention Chu Xiu, Chu Shang's expression immediately changed. He coldly snorted and said, "Don't forget, the current manager of the caravan is me." Chu Shang suddenly thought of something and frowned. "You 3 are managers?" Lu Yuqing and the other 2 nodded, feeling that something was wrong. "Sure enough," Chu Shang immediately said, "from now on, you are not." Saying this, Chu Shang directly let his trusted subordinates take over the position of manager, regardless of whether they had experience in managing a caravan or not. Lu Yuqing and the others stared dumbfoundedly at all this. Although they were dissatisfied, they could only hold it in. At this time, Chu Xiu had returned to his courtyard. Gao Bei carefully followed beside him. Although Chu Xiu did not tell him, the Chu family was only so big, and those rumors had already spread. Now that second young master had lost the caravan, he was probably so angry that he wanted to kill someone. At this time, Chu Xiu suddenly said, "Is there anyone in Chu Shang's inns and restaurants?" Gao Bei was startled for a moment, then said, "I don't think so. The inns and restaurants are all small businesses, so it doesn't matter who is in charge. Therefore, the inns and restaurants shopkeepers are all old people of the Chu family. Fourth young master is only in charge of collecting money, he does not interfere with the business." Chu Xiu nodded and said, "That's good. Go and prepare to move out of the family. I heard that the backyard of my Chu family's restaurant is big enough, so move there." Gao Bei was slightly startled, but he did not care. He thought that Chu Xiu disliked his courtyard in the Chu family because it was too simple. In fact, this kind of thing was very common. Except for the youngest Chu Shang, Chu Kai and Chu Sheng all had their own courtyards outside. After all, they were all adults, and some things that were inconvenient to do in the mansion could be done outside. Early the next morning, the Chu family's gate was very lively. One was Chu Shang preparing to set off with his caravan, and the other was Chu Xiu ordering people to move his things out of the Chu family's residence. The 2 sides just happened to meet. Chu Shang was dressed in tight clothes with a long sword at his waist. He was riding a red northern wind chasing horse. He did not look like a manager of a caravan, but more like a young master who was ready to roam the world at any time. At this time, when he looked at Chu Xiu, there was a trace of pride in his eyes, but in fact, there was also a trace of jealousy and hatred towards Chu Xiu. Previously in the Chu family, he was the youngest. Although he was favored, because his mother had no background, he could only keep a low profile. But at least compared to him, there was still Chu Xiu who could be a scapegoat. This made Chu Shang feel some psychological comfort. But who would have thought that since Chu Xiu came back from the Nanshan mining area, he seemed to have changed into a different person and quickly established prestige in the family. As for Chu Shang, he was still a transparent person. It seemed that the only impression he gave people was that he was well-behaved and liked by the family head. Now, with just a few words, he had successfully won over Chu Xiu's hard work. After all, he was still young. Yesterday, when he was with Chu Zongguang, he could still endure, but now that Chu Zongguang was gone, he couldn't help but show off in front of Chu Xiu. "Second brother, you have also traveled this trade route once, so it can be said that you have some experience. What experience do you have to pass on to your little brother?" Chu Shang rode his horse to the front of Chu Xiu, looking down at him with a face full of ridicule. Chu Xiu said lightly, "Experience? Yesterday, I told you that the trade route is rugged, so be careful. The bandits don't care whether you are a member of the Chu family or not. Once you leave the Tongzhou prefecture, the face of the Chu family will not be easy to use. If you travel through Shangmang Mountain, you will see blood." As soon as the last sentence was said, a scarlet killing intent flashed in Chu Xiu's eyes, causing Chu Shang to jump in fright. But in the blink of an eye, the killing intent had already disappeared. Even Chu Shang thought that he had seen wrong. However, he did not dare to provoke Chu Xiu again. He just coldly snorted and urged the caravan to set off. Chu Shang handed over a total of 4 inns, a restaurant, and a weapon shop to Chu Xiu. However, Chu Xiu did not have much interest in the weapon shop. The Chu family only sold ordinary weapons, and at most, they were only at the first job transition. Apart from the steady monthly income, they did not have much use for them. After Chu Xiu moved his residence to the backyard of the restaurant, Gao Bei also brought 5 nervous shopkeepers to see Chu Xiu. They were just ordinary people, and did not even know much about the internal affairs of the Chu family. Now that the person in charge had suddenly changed, they all felt a little uneasy. Looking at the 5 shopkeepers, Chu Xiu smiled and said, "There is no need to be nervous. Professional matters will be handled by professionals. In the future, the inns and restaurants will still be managed as they should be. Nothing will change." However, Chu Xiu suddenly changed his tone and said, "However, I still have something for you to do." The shopkeepers hurriedly said, "Second young master, please instruct us." Chu Xiu said in a deep voice, "Our Tong province is the prefecture closest to the Yan kingdom. Therefore, when the caravans from the other prefectures of the Wei prefecture travel to the Yan kingdom, most of them will stop at our Tong province. These people can be considered as competitors of our Chu clan's caravans. So, get your men to be more alert and record down everything they hear. This is all useful information, and you must pass it to me every day." Previously, Chu Xiu had promised to give Han Bao information on these caravans. Over the past month, Chu Xiu had indeed given Han Bao a lot of information. However, this information had all been obtained by Chu Xiu's men standing guard at the entrance of the inns. It had taken a lot of effort. Now, it would undoubtedly be much easier to get the people in the inns and restaurants to pass this information to him. Moreover, Chu Xiu didn't have to worry about them leaking anything. These people in the inns and restaurants actually had nothing to do with the Chu clan. Normally, they didn't even need to contact the Chu clan. They just needed to pay the money on time every month, and that was enough. These were just small matters, so the few shopkeepers quickly agreed. After instructing them with a few polite words, Chu Xiu sent them away. Turning around, Chu Xiu said to Gao Bei, "Get ready. Come with me to Shangmang Mountain tomorrow morning." As soon as he heard that Chu Xiu wanted to go to Shangmang Mountain, Gao Bei immediately shivered. He was really a little afraid of those bandits. However, as afraid as he was, he still nodded and didn't refuse. Just like what Chu Xiu had said to him in Yuanbao town, life and death are determined by fate, and wealth and honor are determined by heaven. If you want wealth and honor, you can only fight for it. During this period of time, he had become Chu Xiu's confidant. He didn't do as much as before, but he received a lot of money. He even bought a small courtyard in Tongzhou Prefecture and brought his younger brother there. In the Chu clan, because Chu Xiu's status had risen, his status had also risen. Those servants who used to look down on him now called him elder brother. Just as Chu Xiu had said, there was no time to be content. Although Gao Bei was an honest man, he had already enjoyed all this. Of course, he didn't want to go back. As for Chu Xiu's orders, no matter how much he resisted, he didn't dare to refuse. Or rather, he didn't want to refuse. Chapter 18. Chu Xiu was now an acquaintance of the stronghold in Beishangmang Mountain, so he was directly invited to the meeting hall. Han Bao came out with Ma Kuo, his face flushed. Chu Xiu smiled and said, "Looking at you, it seems that business has been good recently?" "Ha! It's more than good. My stronghold's income has increased by more than 10 times. Now, almost all of Beishangmang Mountain is my territory. If other strongholds want to establish themselves in Beishangmang Mountain, they have to listen to me." Han Bao sat opposite Chu Xiu and said with a smile, "Chu Xiu boy, your idea is not bad. I'll accept it. Don't leave, I've already asked people to prepare a banquet. Let's drink until we're drunk." Chu Xiu raised his hand and said, "There's no hurry to drink. Boss Han, this time I came to ask you for a favor." Han Bao narrowed his eyes and said, "Oh, who do you want to rob and kill?" He was a rough man, and his words and actions were very direct. Chu Xiu had given him an idea and helped him provide information, but there was no free lunch in this world. Now it was his turn. Chu Xiu said lightly, "My fourth brother, Chu Shang." Hearing Chu Xiu's words, Han Bao and Ma Kuo looked at each other and felt a chill in their hearts. Chu Xiu's way of doing things was truly sinister. He had robbed and killed his own people twice. The first time, it was okay, it was just some servants. This time, it was even better. It was directly their own brothers. But they didn't say anything. Han Bao and Ma Kuo were both part of the 36 northern bandits. They were not inexperienced bandits. They had seen brothers fighting each other many times. Now that Chu Xiu was doing this, they wouldn't make a fuss. So Han Bao asked directly, "This time, do you want to kill the leader like last time and leave the rest?" Chu Xiu indifferently said, "The leaders have all been killed. Furthermore, there's also a blood condensation cultivator in this group. Boss Han, you need to personally deal with him. Of course, you can't kill my fourth brother. After all, he's my blood brother." Han Bao rolled his eyes. Just as he was about to say, "Since that's your biological brother, why are you asking me to kill him?" But who would have thought that Chu Xiu would wave his hand and say, "Of course I can't kill my own brother, but he made me very unhappy this time, so I'll just cripple him and teach him a lesson." Han Bao's words were immediately choked back by Chu Xiu. He thought to himself, you might as well kill him. Although the Chu family was small, it was still a martial arts family. What was a martial arts family? Martial arts were passed down through the family. Martial strength was ranked above that of the family. If a person was crippled, it wouldn't matter if he was born into a rich family. But if he was born into a martial arts family, then he would be crippled for the rest of his life. It was practically a life worse than death. Seeing Han Bao and Ma Kuo's speechless expressions, Chu Xiu smiled and said, "Boss Han, I'm speaking from the bottom of my heart. Leave my brother alive. Otherwise, it would be easy to kill him. But he's my father's most beloved son. If he dies, the northern Mang Mountain will never have a day of peace." Han Bao coldly laughed and said, "Chu Xiu brat, I'm not slandering your Chu family. But your father Chu Zongguang's strength is nothing compared to the northern land's 36 bandits. When I, Han Bao, followed the boss back then, I was just an unremarkable small character. But now that I can't find the boss, I can only become a bandit in this remote place. Right now, I still have internal injuries that haven't healed. Once I recover, I'll even dare to fight against the Tong Prefecture's Shen family's leader, Shen Bai." When he said this, Han Bao didn't exude arrogance, but confidence, strong confidence. Although he, Han Bao, was just a small character among the northern land's 36 bandits, who were the enemies of the northern land's 36 bandits. They were the top martial arts forces in the country of Yen and the entire northern Yen dynasty. Against these people, Han Bao could be said to have been through hundreds of battles. Although they were all at the innate stage, martial arts itself was the way of killing. Martial artists like Han Bao, who had killed their way through mountains of corpses and seas of blood, were the strongest. Chu Xiu laughed and said, "But the problem now, Boss Han, is that your injuries haven't healed yet, so there's no need to stir up trouble. By the way, there's one more thing I'd like to discuss with you, Boss Han. I'd like to ask Brother Ma and his brothers to come to the Tong Prefecture to help me temporarily. Don't worry, the money will not be less. It's definitely more than the Chu family's hanger-ons." Chu Xiu had no choice but to ask Ma Kuo for help. There was almost no one under him that he could use. Gao Bei was loyal enough, but it was a pity that he was too timid. It would be difficult for him to achieve anything great, so he could only ask him to do some chores. If Chu Xiu asked him to handle the big things, it would be purely making things difficult for Gao Bei. Looking at the other members of the Chu family, Chu Kai was the eldest son, and his subordinates were strong. Chu Xing had also accumulated a lot. Even the youngest, Chu Shang, had no background, but he was the most favored. Chu Zongguang was even willing to send a blood condensation hanger-on to him. Right now, Chu Xiu's foundation was the weakest. Even if he started training him now, Chu Xiu would think it was too slow. So he could only turn his attention to Han Bao. Chu Xiu had seen Ma Kuo's strength before. He was definitely one of the top body-tempering cultivators, and he was also a meticulous person. Sometimes, he would think more than Han Bao, the chief. He could be considered a capable person. Han Bao's expression was a little strange. "Aren't you afraid that people will find out that you're colluding with bandits?" Chu Xiu shook his head. Of course not. Brother Ma wasn't in the northern Death Mang Mountain before. He only fought a few times in the southern Death Mang Mountain. No one in the Tong Province Prefecture has seen him. The only time Brother Ma fought was when he robbed a caravan. But that was at night, and everyone in the caravan who had seen Brother Ma were already dead. Our Chu family has always been recruiting hanger-ons. As long as I don't recruit Brother Ma and the others all at once, it won't raise any suspicions. Han Bao turned to Ma Kuo and asked, "What do you think?" Han Bao had more than 10 people under him who were about as strong as Ma Kuo. Now that their stronghold had pretty much controlled the entire northern Death Mang Mountain, they had no shortage of people. As long as Ma Kuo agreed, it wouldn't be a problem to borrow a few dozen of Chu Xiu's men. Ma Kuo flexed his wrists. Of course it's not a problem. I've been idling around in this stronghold all day. Even if young Master Chu hadn't come looking for me, I would have returned to the southern Death Mang Mountain to be a bandit for a few more days. Han Bao ignored Ma Kuo's complaints. He asked Chu Xiu, "When do you plan to make a move on your brother's caravan?" Chu Xiu thought for a moment. "Let's not make a move this time. Let them pass the Shangmang Mountain safely. We'll make our move when they return. Otherwise, it'll be very suspicious if they get robbed right after they set off." Han Bao waved his hand. "If that's the case, then there's no need to rush. I'll have someone prepare a banquet. Let's drink till we're drunk." Although Han Bao and the others were no longer low-level bandits, some of the habits of bandits still remained, such as when they drank. Chu Xiu was drunk for the entire night. The next morning he left with Ma Kuo and the others. On their way down the mountain, Chu Xiu and Ma Kuo bumped into Feng Yidao, one of Han Bao's subordinates. Now, Han Bao's subordinates no longer had to spend so much effort to ambush caravans. With Chu Xiu's information, they could wait for the caravans along the general route in advance. All they had to do was pay up. After a month, the caravans that came and went from the Shangmang Mountain also knew this rule. To them, it was worth it to spend money to buy their safety. Although it was a lot of money, it was worth it. Feng Yidao watched Ma Kuo leave with Chu Xiu. He even changed his clothes to that of an ordinary martial artist. He couldn't help but ask, "Where are you guys going?" Ma Kuo pointed at Chu Xiu and said, "Young Master Chu needs some people. He hired us to help him. You haven't opened your business yet?" Feng Yidao said lazily, "According to the information given by young Master Chu, there's a caravan from the Luo family coming back from the Yan Kingdom. The Luo family is a small family. They're too slow. I've been waiting here since morning, but they haven't arrived yet." Hearing Feng Yidao's words, Chu Xiu suddenly thought of something. He asked, "Chief Feng, is the Luo family from the small Shuangfeng town?" Feng Yidao scratched his head. "Yes, it's that small family. This information was given to us by young Master Chu. Don't you know about it?" Chu Xiu shook his head. "This information was collected by my subordinates. I didn't check them one by one. Chief Feng, I have something that I need your help with." "Young Master Chu, please tell me." Feng Yidao agreed quickly. Feng Yidao naturally wouldn't be interested in ordinary young masters. However, this young Master Chu in front of him was in a cooperative relationship with their village. Naturally, he was one of them. Moreover, their boss had commented on this Chu Xiu before. Ma Kuo said that this Chu Xiu's saber was very fast, but Boss Han said that compared to his saber, this person's heart was even more vicious. Boss Han used to be Leader Pang Pang's personal guard. He could be considered a knowledgeable person. In any case, Feng Yidao rarely saw Boss Han comment on a young man like that. Chu Xiu said in a deep voice, "I'm interested in some things from the Luo family. I'd like to trouble Chief Feng to help me get them. Of course, don't break the rules too much. Be more tactful." If Chu Xiu remembered correctly, in the original plot, the Luo family from the Shuangfeng town had received a batch of secret boxes from the merchants from the Yan Kingdom. The merchants from the Yan Kingdom didn't bring enough money with them and used them to pay off their debts. Originally, the Luo family didn't pay much attention to it. However, who would have thought that the secret boxes would really contain two good things? At least for a small family like the Luo family, it was good stuff. In the end, the news was accidentally leaked, and it even caused the surrounding small families to join forces and annihilate the Luo family. This time, Chu Xiu did a good deed by getting the secret boxes. At least without the treasures, the Luo family wouldn't be annihilated. On the other side, Feng Yidao waved his hand and said, "Young Master Chu, don't worry. Leave it to me." Chapter 19. The Luo clan was a very small clan. It couldn't even be called a martial arts clan because there were only a few people who practiced martial arts in the entire clan. Some of the people escorting the caravan didn't even practice martial arts and were just ordinary servants. A steward of the Luo clan's caravan shouted to the caravan, "Hurry up! Wait until we get out of Shangmeng Mountain and pass by Tongzhou Prefecture before resting." The caravan moved forward with difficulty on the small path. At this time, Feng Yidao and the others openly blocked the road without any concealment. If it was in the past, the Luo clan's caravan would definitely turn around and run. But now, the Luo clan steward smiled and approached Feng Yidao. He smiled apologetically and took out an ingot of silver and said, "Heroes of Shangmeng Mountain, this is the toll fee. Heroes, take it and have some wine." Feng Yidao didn't take the silver ingot. Instead, he slapped it away and said with a gloomy expression, "You mother-f***er, are you messing with me? 50 taels of silver is enough for me to have some wine, but what about the brothers behind me? Are they going to starve to death?" The Luo clan's steward was shocked. He immediately complained, "Heroes of Shangmeng Mountain, I'm really not messing with you. The toll fee has always been 10% of the value of the goods. My Luo clan brought a lot of goods with us, but that was because they had already paid a deposit. Therefore, when we came back, we only brought back about 500 taels of silver worth of goods. Most of the goods are local specialties of Yan Kingdom. Don't think that it's a lot, it's actually not worth much. Why don't you go and have a look?" Feng Yidao directly waved his hand and said, "I don't care about that. When you came back, didn't you tell me in advance that you didn't bring those goods? Just for your 50 taels of silver, I ended up waiting here with my men for the whole morning. What do you think we should do about this?" At this time, the Luo clan steward was about to cry. Facing such a group of fierce bandits, what could they do? Feng Yidao chuckled and said, "Don't blame me for bullying you. How about this? You can leave, but leave the goods behind. Next time, remember to be smart. Don't say that I broke the rules. If something like this happens in the future, tell me in advance." The steward from the Luo clan was just about to say something when he saw Feng Yidao's expression sink. Feng Yidao coldly said, "What? You're not willing? Do you want money more than your life?" After being frightened by Feng Yidao, the steward of the Luo clan did not dare to say anything else. He immediately led his men and fled in panic. After everyone left, Chu Xiu and Ma Kuo walked out of the forest. Feng Yidao waved his hand and said, "Young Master Chu, if there's anything you like, feel free to take it." Chu Xiu rummaged through the goods. Among them, there were more than 10 secret boxes. He took the secret boxes and said to Feng Yidao, "Chief Feng, I'll leave the rest of these things to you." Feng Yidao saw that Chu Xiu only took the secret boxes, but he did not say anything. In the past, when the 36 bandits of the northern region were at their strongest, they had obtained quite a few secret boxes. However, the element of luck in these things was too poor. Normally, if someone found the ruins of a big clan, they would know without saying that there must be good things in the secret boxes. They would snatch them first and then think about it later. They would not be able to get to the outside world. Most of the secret boxes that did get to the outside world were of unknown origin, or they were excavated from the ruins of some small clan. Basically, there was nothing good in them. After getting the secret boxes, Chu Xiu went down the mountain with Ma Kuo and the others. However, after entering the Tongzhou Prefecture, they separated. With so many people joining Chu Xiu's group at the same time, it was very suspicious. Therefore, Ma Kuo and the others would enter the Tongzhou Prefecture in batches and join his group in batches. After returning to his courtyard, Chu Xiu opened the secret boxes one by one and checked the things inside. The two things that the Luo family had obtained should be good things, but they were not treasures. Otherwise, the news would have spread out a long time ago, and it would not be a fight between a few small clans. After opening the secret boxes one by one, When Chu Xiu opened the fifth box, a sheepskin book appeared in front of Chu Xiu. The words, blood knife scripture, were written on it. Chu Xiu raised his eyebrows. This skill had appeared in the original world, and it was evaluated as a third-grade skill. It was not high, but it was definitely not low either. After opening it, the knife skill in the blood knife scripture could only be summarized in one sentence: evil and ruthless. The angle of the knife was extremely strange, and it was impossible to guard against it. Almost every move was a killing move. It was obvious that it was an extremely evil skill, but it was also quite to Chu Xiu's liking. Chu Xiu had practiced the Azure Dragon in the sleeve to a beginner level. Even drawing the knife out of the sheath had become an instinct. However, the Azure Dragon in the sleeve was supposed to be a skill to hide the knife. It was particular about the Azure Dragon goes to sea, and it was a surprise at the moment of a fatal strike. However, now that he was facing an enemy, because Chu Xiu had no other skills to defend himself, he could only choose to use the Azure Dragon in the sleeve as soon as possible. It would be fine if this knife could kill or seriously injure the opponent. However, if the opponent blocked or dodged it, Chu Xiu's knife would lose its meaning, and its power would decrease by 90%. Now, with the help of the blood knife scripture, Chu Xiu's combat power could be increased a little. The blood knife scripture was put away by Chu Xiu, and he prepared to practice it later. A third-grade skill was indeed a treasure for a small clan like the Luo family. It was no wonder that it would cause a fight. The remaining secret boxes were also opened by Chu Xiu. However, the things inside were somewhat unexpected. It turned out to be a mechanical hidden weapon, and it was a hidden weapon from the Thousand Machines sect. During the Great Calamity of ancient times, the Tang sect of Sichuan was the strongest in the field of hidden weapons. After the calamity, the survivors of the Tang sect of Sichuan rebuilt the Tang sect and changed its name to the Tang Family Fortress. It was the top martial arts force in the land of West Chu. Moreover, before the Great Calamity, the Thousand Machines sect's attainments in the field of hidden weapons were second only to the Tang sect. However, the difference between the two sects and the Tang sect was the understanding of hidden weapons. The Tang sect paid particular attention to the use of hidden weapons and poisons. It was still based on people and supplemented by hidden weapons. The current Tang Family Fortress followed the path of the Tang sect in the past. The Thousand Machines sect mainly researched mechanical hidden weapons, which could be used by ordinary people. Although the cost was high, it was undoubtedly more suitable for some low-level martial artists. Unfortunately, the inheritance of the Thousand Machines sect had been broken. Although the Tang Family Fortress would sometimes make some mechanical hidden weapons, there were not many. The hidden weapon in Chu Xiu's hand was called the Thousand Leaf Plume. It looked like a cylinder, and there were instructions in the secret case. As long as the trigger was pressed, the thousands of metal leaves that were as thin as cicadas' wings would explosively shoot out. Its might was extremely terrifying, but it was a pity that it could only be used once. Moreover, the instructions said that the Thousand Leaf Plume could theoretically kill a Xiantian martial artist, but that was only in theory. In a face-to-face situation, a Xiantian martial artist would definitely be able to block this hidden weapon if they were prepared. As Chu Xiu was bitterly practicing the Blood Blade scripture, Chu Shang had already brought the caravan back to the Tongzhou prefecture. For Chu Shang, this time's caravan was just like a vacation, without the slightest pressure. With the protection of a blood condensation expert like Lin Qian, when they passed through Shangmang Mountain, they paid the toll according to the rules. The bandits also obediently let them pass, and there was no danger at all. Thinking of this, his proposal to trade for Chu Xiu's caravan with his father was simply a great profit. Of course, Chu Shang could only bring this up once. If he brought it up again, he would be asking for a foot after taking an inch. He was not an idiot, and he knew that his father's love for him was limited. If he provoked Chu Zongguang's disgust, then his position in the Chu clan would be no different from Chu Xiu's. Just as he was thinking of this, over 100 bandits appeared in front of him, blocking the road and collecting the toll. The person leading them was still Feng Yidao. He often guarded this area, so the Chu clan's caravan members all recognized him. One of Chu Shang's subordinates handed over a banknote and cupped his hands, "Leader Feng, please let us pass." Feng Yidao frowned. "Only 400 taels, why is it so little? We'll go search it." The steward hurriedly said, "Leader Feng, our Chu clan has always followed the rules. We definitely won't be short of the toll we should pay." Feng Yidao sneered, "Whether you follow the rules or not, it's not up to you, it's up to me. Now you won't let me search, could it be that there's something fishy going on?" Chu Shang's eyes revealed a hint of anger. The last time he went to Yen Kingdom, he did not suffer this kind of humiliation. Just as he was about to say something, a steward next to him quickly pulled him back. "Fourth young master, don't be impulsive. This is Shangmang Mountain. If they want to search, then let them search. In any case, we didn't do anything." Chu Shang coldly snorted, "Let them search." Several bandits walked over and searched the caravan one by one. After calculating for a bit, they whispered a few words into Feng Yidao's ear. Feng Yidao sneered, "You still say you didn't do anything fishy? Your caravan's goods are worth around 6,000 taels, so the toll is not 400, but 600. Hearing this, Chu Shang couldn't bear it anymore. He pointed at Feng Yidao and angrily shouted, "You are deliberately looking for trouble. What do bandits know about the price? This caravan of goods is for you. If you can sell it for 6,000 taels, these goods will belong to you." Hearing this, the steward next to Chu Shang immediately cursed in his heart. This fourth young master was too impulsive. He actually dared to go against those bandits. Although he had never been a steward of a caravan before, he knew that when people were under someone else's roof, they had no choice but to lower their head. This was Shangmang Mountain, the territory of those bandits. Wasn't it just 200 taels more? If these bandits wanted to extort money, then they could just spend 200 taels more to buy their safety. Why bother clashing with them? Chapter 20. Feng Yidao originally came to look for trouble. Hearing Chu Shang's words, he sneered and said, "Little brat, you're courting death. Do I need you to teach me how to do things? Fine, don't think of leaving Shangmang Mountain today. Leave the goods and leave the people behind." Chu Shang's face did not show any fear. He cupped his hands towards Lin Qian and said, "Uncle Lin, I'll leave this place to you." Chu Shang was not an idiot. If not for an expert like Lin Qian, he would not have dared to be so arrogant in a place like Shangmang Mountain that was filled with bandits. Lin Qian rode his horse out of the caravan. With a sword in hand, he casually cupped his hands towards Feng Yidao and said, "It's convenient for others and convenient for ourselves. I advise everyone to give way. Otherwise, there will be no chance to regret when the time comes." Chu Shang proudly said to the stewards in the back, "Did you see that? Uncle Lin has the demeanor of a true expert. Our Chu family is not like those small families that have to be respectful to these bandits and bend their knees. If they follow the rules, then we will also follow the rules. If they don't follow the rules, then we can't just admit defeat. I heard that last time my second brother fought with this bandit leader, and even after winning, he still gave money to the other party. This is simply a disgrace to our Chu clan." The stewards of the caravan looked at each other and revealed a bitter smile. They were all Chu Shang's men, but they were also elders of the Chu clan. They still had some understanding of the ways of the world. This Shangmang Mountain was the territory of these bandits. This time, they had Lin Qian's protection and could safely return, but because of this, they had also offended the bandits in Shangmang Mountain. Would their Chu clan be able to leave Shangmang Mountain the next time? Lin Qian was a guest of the Chu clan, not a servant of the caravan. He would always accompany them on their travels. Moreover, they had heard that the bandits in Shangmang Mountain were very strong, and there were even Xiantian realm experts among them. If they were to alarm the Xiantian realm experts, even Lin Qian would not be able to protect them. Could the clan head personally escort the caravan? The fourth young master had actually said that the second young master had lost face for the Chu clan. Anyone with a discerning eye could tell that the second young master had done the safest thing. First, they had defeated the bandit, gaining face and displaying their Chu clan strength. Then, they had given the bandit some money to ease their relationship, allowing the bandit to escort them out of Shangmang Mountain. Using both kindness and power, they had even received some benefits from the bandit. This was a wise move. the managers of the caravans all shook their heads. They had already been won over by third madam with a large sum of money. Even if Chu Shang really was a good-for-nothing, there was nothing they could do. At this time, Lin Qian's face was filled with arrogance. He did not care about the tempered body realm martial artist and the group of small fries. Even though Lin Qian knew that if he touched these bandits today, then the Chu clan's next trip to Shangmang Mountain would not be so smooth, but he was only a retainer of the Chu clan. Chu Shang ordered him to do it, so why would he care so much? However, at this moment, a cold voice rang out. Well said. Sabers and swords have no eyes. If you die here today, don't blame me for being ruthless. Han Bao walked out from the side with a saber that was almost as tall as a person. His eyes flashed with a cold light, and his aura was incomparably violent. The moment he saw Han Bao, Lin Qian immediately cursed inwardly. There was actually such a strong expert among these bandits? Judging from the other party's aura, he should also be in the blood condensation realm. However, his accumulation was much deeper than Lin Qian's, and he was even close to the Xiantian realm. Facing an opponent of this level, Lin Qian was not as confident as before. He hurriedly said, this, however, before he could finish speaking, Han Bao, who was opposite him, directly raised his Zamedeo, shouted, and directly slashed at him. The saber fell with unparalleled momentum. With every step Han Bao took, the aura on his body grew stronger. By the time the saber was about to hit Lin Qian, there was only one thought in Lin Qian's mind. I can't block it. Therefore, Lin Qian's figure directly jumped off the horse's back. However, the warhorse under him was directly cut in half by Han Bao's saber. Amidst the rain of blood, Lin Qian said in shock, military combat techniques. When Lin Qian roamed the pugilistic world in the past, he had seen the military experts of the Northern Yan Imperial Court in action. They were indeed somewhat different from the people of the pugilistic world. Their martial arts were majestic and incomparably ferocious, and they pursued extreme lethality. Han Bao sneered, military my ass. The 36 northern bandits were exterminated by the Northern Yan Imperial Court in conjunction with the Northern Yan pugilistic world. Naturally, they did not have a good impression of the Imperial Court. Therefore, Han Bao turned the saber in his hand, and the long saber danced. Like a gale, it slashed at Lin Qian with majestic momentum. Lin Qian gritted his teeth and unsheathed the long sword in his hand. The edge of the sword flickered, and he barely managed to block Han Bao's saber. However, when the saber and sword clashed, Lin Qian suddenly felt a trace of great force coming at him. The hand holding the sword trembled, and the long sword almost flew out of his hand. Lin Qian came from a small pugilistic world sect, and his swordsmanship was also inherited. He walked the light and agile path of orthodox swordsmen. His sword moves were elegant, and the edge of the sword was nimble. However, Han Bao's saber was incomparably ferocious and domineering. It was difficult for Lin Qian to parry the other's saber, and he could not use his own swordsmanship at all. Just as Lin Qian wanted to retreat and temporarily pull away from Han Bao, a murderous intent suddenly appeared in Han Bao's eyes. The saber that was swinging wildly just now suddenly retracted, and the long saber was like a dark snake, stabbing into Lin Qian's crotch. From the bottom to the top, it directly tore Lin Qian in half. In an instant, blood rained down. Chu Shang and the rest were dumbfounded, and their eyes revealed a look of disbelief. Lin Qian was one of the two strongest guests of the Chu family. How could they die just like that? How could he be so easily hacked to death with a single slash? Han Bao directly waved his hand, and a group of bandits immediately surrounded them, their eyes revealing a fierce glint. Chu Shang hurriedly shouted, "Fellow heroes, please wait a moment. I am a member of the Tong State's Chu family." The other stewards wished they could shut Chu Shang's mouth. Why are you still mentioning the Chu family at this time? The Chu family's name was useless in this Shangmang Mountain. The corner of Han Bao's mouth revealed a trace of coldness, and he said, "Chu family? Very well, I will give the Chu family face today and spare your life. Kill all the stewards and leave the goods behind. The rest of you, go back and report to your family head. My Shangmang Mountain has its rules, and breaking the rules will result in this. Hearing this, Chu Shang immediately let out a sigh of relief. It did not matter if the stewards died or not, as long as he could live. However, at this time, Han Bao suddenly stretched out his hand and directly pulled Chu Shang down from the horse. With 2 stomps, he directly broke both of Chu Shang's legs, and then followed up with 2 stomps, breaking his arms, causing his limbs to be twisted beyond recognition. For a warrior of Chu Shang's level, he had not even cultivated his dantian. Crippling his dantian would be useless, and directly breaking his 4 limbs would be enough. Looking at Chu Shang, who was wailing in pain on the ground, Han Bao sneered, "I only said that I would not kill you, but I did not say that I would let you go. Reincarnate into a good life in your next life." There was still another sentence that Han Bao did not say, and that was to reincarnate into a good life in your next life, and not become brothers with a vicious guy like Chu Xiu. Otherwise, you would not even know how you died. After dealing with the matter, Han Bao waved his hand, and the other bandits directly took the caravan's goods and left, leaving behind the wailing Chu Shang and a group of Chu family members with a frightened expression. 3 days later, Chu Xiu was practicing the blood saber scripture in his own courtyard. This new courtyard was much larger than the small courtyard he had in the Chu clan. There were wooden stakes all around it, but some of them had already been hacked out of shape by Chu Xiu, so much so that they had to be wrapped in a layer of metal. Ma Kuo stood to the side with his heavy sword. When Chu Xiu finished practicing, he could not help but shake his head and said, "Child Chu, where did you learn this evil saber technique? It's really evil and not the right path." Chu Xiu flicked the goose feather saber in his hand and said lightly, "Martial arts are used to kill people. It doesn't matter if it is good or evil, as long as it can kill people." The short saber from before was put into his sleeve, or more accurately, on his arm. Chu Xiu originally had a weapon shop, so he specially asked the people in the weapon shop to make a thin short saber, and the scabbard was tied to his forearm. In this way, even if Chu Xiu wore close combat clothes, others would not be able to see that there was a short saber hidden in his arm. Now, after practicing the blood saber scripture, Chu Xiu's saber had also been replaced by a narrow goose feather saber. Ma Kuo had exchanged a few moves with Chu Xiu, but Chu Xiu's evil blood saber technique had left a deep impression on him. Each of Ma Kuo's moves was extremely ruthless. The more he defended, the more aggressive Chu Xiu became. In less than 20 moves, Chu Xiu had left several wounds on Ma Kuo's body. If they really fought, it would not be difficult for Chu Xiu to kill him. In fact, what really shocked Ma Kuo was that Chu Xiu's strength had improved so quickly. He remembered the first time he met Chu Xiu, he could only injure the 3rd bandit, Lien Laosen. It had only been 2 months, and even Ma Kuo was no match for him. It was really terrifying. At this moment, Gao Bei carefully pushed the door open and said, "Child, the 4th young master has been carried back. He has been disabled. Lin Qian and the other managers of the caravan are also dead." He had once followed Chu Xiu to Shangmeng Mountain, so he naturally knew who did all this. Chu Xiu put the saber back into the scabbard, and a faint smile appeared on his face. He said, "My father must be very sad now, right? Let's go and have a look." Chapter 21. When Chu Xiu returned to the Chu family, the entire Chu family was in a mess. Chu Shang was lying on the stretcher, howling in pain while the 3rd madam was crying on Chu Shang's body. The eldest son Chu Xiu and the eldest madam were rejoicing in Chu Shang's misfortune, while the 3rd madam and the 2nd madam were hypocritically comforting Chu Shang. However, their acting was a bit clumsy, to the point that even Chu Xiu couldn't stand it anymore. Chu Zongguang was sitting in the main seat. His expression was gloomy. His anger was like a volcano, ready to erupt at any time. As for the other Chu family elders, they didn't care much about the family's affairs, especially now that the patriarch's son was involved. They didn't dare to say anything. The previous steward of the caravan, Lu Yuqing, was kneeling in the middle, trembling as he recounted the events in detail to everyone. The more he spoke, the more Chu Zongguang's expression became gloomier. At this time, a doctor came in. He only took a glance before shaking his head and said, "Patriarch Chu, your son's limbs are all broken. If they were reattached in time, he would still be able to walk, But now that several days have passed, he is completely crippled. I'm afraid he can only stay in bed for the rest of his life." Hearing this, the third madam cried even harder. Seeing this chaotic scene, Chu Xiu didn't say anything. He directly sat to the side and leisurely drank a cup of tea. Seeing Chu Xiu's leisurely appearance, the third Madam Chu Xing suddenly said, "Second brother, fourth brother is already injured to this extent. You still have the mood to drink tea here? Are you happy that fourth brother is crippled?" As soon as these words came out, everyone's gaze turned towards Chu Xiu. Even Chu Zongguang looked at Chu Xiu with an unfriendly gaze. He was currently very angry. If Chu Xiu said something wrong, he would easily become the target of his anger. Chu Xiu coldly snorted, then heavily put down the teacup and coldly said, "I'm happy? I'm just about to cry right now. Fourth brother is already crippled. If I cry like you, do you think fourth brother will recover? Before I left, I told fourth brother to be careful, but in the end, such a thing happened. Fourth brother is young and inexperienced, and his subordinate steward doesn't know how to dissuade him. If they hadn't all died this time, I would have killed them again." Chu Xiu walked out and saluted Chu Zongguang, then said in a deep voice, "Father, now is not the time to cry. If this matter isn't handled well, then it won't just be fourth brother who will cry, our Chu family will also cry. Those bandits crippled fourth brother and stole our Chu clan's goods. There's already a deep grudge between us, but should we fight or not? If we fight, then we need to investigate the location of the other's village and their strength. After all, the leader of the bandits has the ability to easily kill Lin Qian. And if we don't fight, will our Chu clan's caravan be robbed the next time they enter Shangmang Mountain? I won't say much about who is right and who is wrong in this matter. In any case, if this matter isn't settled, our Chu clan won't go through Shangmang Mountain in the future. We'll just take a detour and take the official road. All of this is up to Lord Father to decide." Chu Xiu gained the upper hand with a show of strength. His imposing manner was incomparably calm, and he unexpectedly subdued everyone present. As these words were spoken, the complexions of everyone present changed. Even Chu Xing couldn't be bothered to pretend to cry. This matter was absolutely a major matter for the Chu clan. If they fought, did their Chu clan have the ability to do so? His favorite son had been crippled, so Chu Zongguang was naturally angry. But after all, Chu Xing's life was still there, so he wouldn't go crazy. For the past 20 years, he hadn't carefully managed the Chu clan. Besides him, there were very few martial artists in the Chu clan who could truly fight. Compared to those bandits who numbered in the hundreds or even thousands, they had no advantage at all. The most important thing was the strength of the bandit leader. With the eyesight of Lu Yuqing and the others, they simply couldn't see whether the bandit who killed Lin Qian was at the blood condensation realm or Xiantian realm. But from his description of the result of the battle, the other party was most likely at the Xiantian realm. That kind of strength could almost be considered as crushing. This way, if they fought head-on, they wouldn't have the confidence to win. And the remaining Chu Kai and Chu Xing, as well as the Chu clan elders, had the same thought. The Chu clan wasn't just Chu Zongguang's Chu clan, it was also their Chu clan. In order to avenge Chu Shang, the result was that the entire Chu clan would have to risk their lives to fight against those bandits. This was obviously not something they wanted to see. Chu Xiu retreated to the side, his eyes revealing a trace of ridicule. With the Chu clan's conduct, it really wasn't easy for them to last until now. Everyone was only thinking about their own benefits. There wasn't a single person who was thinking about the Chu clan as a whole. In fact, Chu Xiu even had a feeling that even his father was the same. He was only thinking about his own benefits, as if he didn't care about the Chu clan at all. Chu Kai coughed and said, "Father, this matter should be considered at length. Those bandits have occupied Shangmang Mountain for so many years that even the soldiers have been unable to do anything. Even the strongest Qin family in our Tong prefecture has tacitly accepted their existence. If we were to act now, it would be a bit unwise." Chu Xing also said from the side, "Big brother is right, we have to be cautious about this matter. Moreover, this matter was also fourth brother's impulsiveness. No matter how greedy those bandits were, at most they would have taken 200 taels of silver. We could have just given it to them. How could we have ended up like this? Not only have we caused so much trouble, we even caused our Chu clan's blood condensation expert to lose his life. Once the two of them finished speaking, the other Chu clan elders also began to agree, advising Chu Zongguang to calm down. Although they were all old and didn't have many years left to live, a portion of their nephews were still stewards of the Chu clan. They didn't care about the power struggles of the Chu clan's young masters, but when it came to the benefits of the entire Chu clan, they couldn't ignore it. At this time, the third madam who was lying on top of Chu Shang couldn't help crying out, "Master, you have to get justice for Shang Earth." Chu Zongguang frowned and said, "Shut up. Do you think I don't want to get revenge for Shang? But can I gamble the entire Chu clan for a single Shang?" And Shang, before we left, I warned him again and again to be careful, but he was still so impulsive and caused so much trouble. Being shouted at like this by Chu Zongguang, the third madam didn't dare say another word. Chu Shang was already crippled, so she no longer had any hope in the Chu clan. If she offended Chu Zongguang again, it was very likely she would be directly expelled from the Chu clan. At this time, an elder of the Chu clan suddenly coughed and said, "Clan master, it is not wise for our Chu clan to take revenge on Shangmang Mountain at this time. But people under the eaves have no choice but to lower their heads. As long as our Chu clan's caravan still wants to continue traveling in Shangmang Mountain, there must be a conclusion to this matter. Otherwise, if this caravan is robbed again, our Chu clan will not be able to accept it." The one who spoke was Chu Xiu's great-uncle, and also the oldest of the elders. He was already over 80 years old and normally didn't care about such matters. But this matter involved too many people, and he was afraid that Chu Zongguang would be too impulsive, so he spoke up. Chu Zongguang also took the opportunity to back down and nodded his head, saying, "Uncle is right, we will let those bandits go for now, and find an opportunity to deal with them once and for all. But next time, who will lead the caravan?" Everyone present looked at each other in dismay. Those bandits did not hesitate to cripple Chu Shang, proving that they did not put the Chu clan in their eyes. Who would dare to go again? Were they not afraid of being cut down by the bandits? At this time, the great-uncle looked at Chu Xiu, his face revealing a trace of a kind smile, and said, "Chu Xiu, among us brothers, you are the most daring but careful, and the most capable. Last time, you did a good job. Not only did you not lose our Chu clan's face, but you also brought benefits to the caravan. Why don't you go again this time?" Chu Kai and the others all had a complicated expression on their faces. It was very simple to see who had the most ability. When something happened to the clan, the first person everyone would look for was obviously the one with the most weight in everyone's hearts. Now that the great-uncle spoke, it was clear that he thought that Chu Xiu's ability was more outstanding than theirs. Of course, they did not fight with Chu Xiu for this limelight. Such a dangerous task, even if it was given to them for free, they would not do it. Chu Xiu did not agree, and only sneered in his heart. This old thing really had a good idea. When it was his turn to take on a dangerous task, he would become the Chu clan's young hero. Chu Xiu remembered very clearly that none of the elders had even looked at him in the eye during the clan meeting. Chu Zongguang also coughed and said, "Chu Xiu, since first uncle has said so, then you go." Chu Xiu still did not agree. He just stood up and said in a deep voice, "Dare I ask, Sir Father, does my Chu clan still have rules?" Chu Zongguang frowned and said, "What are you talking about? Of course there are rules." Chu Xiu said indifferently, "Since there are rules, then things can't be done like this. The caravan is managed by me, and it is also under my hands that the profits have doubled. Sir Father said that if you want to train fourth brother, you can. I gave the caravan to fourth brother without any hesitation. But the result? Chu Shang messed things up, and I have to clean up his mess. Who is responsible for this? Also, who does this caravan belong to in the end? If things go on like this, then Sir Father, this child will not accept it." Chu Xiu's last sentence suddenly stunned everyone present. Although Chu Zongguang did not care much about the Chu clan these years, his prestige within the Chu clan did not decline. After all, his strength was still there. Chu Xiu could be said to be the first person in so many years who dared to disobey Chu Zongguang's orders, and this person was his own son. Chapter 22. Chu Zongguang was furious that Chu Xiu dared to contradict him in public. He was even prepared to take away all of Chu Xiu's authority and make him kneel in front of the ancestral hall. However, after his anger subsided, Chu Zongguang was stunned to find that no one in the entire Chu family could handle this matter. Chu Kai and the others didn't have the ability, and they didn't dare to go. The other stewards of the Chu family also didn't have the courage and ability. Chu Zongguang dared to go, but the problem was that once he went, the nature of the matter would change. No matter what, Chu Zongguang was still the patriarch of the Chu family. If he took a tough stance, it would be easy to tear the other party's face. If he took a weak stance, he would lose face for the Chu family. Therefore, no matter how one looked at it, Chu Xiu was the most appropriate person to handle this matter. However, before Chu Zongguang could say anything, the third madam shouted at Chu Xiu, "Sheng is already injured, how do you still want to punish him?" Chu Xiu faintly said, "Just because he's injured, he'll be fine? Isn't this a bit too easy to use?" The third madam wanted to say something, but Chu Zongguang directly waved his hand and said, "Take Sheng out and let him recuperate. From now on, he doesn't need to worry about the Chu family's business." After saying that, Chu Zongguang turned his gaze to Chu Xiu and coldly snorted, "From now on, the caravan will be handed over to you. No one can take it away. Go to the accounts room and get some money. You can spend it as you see fit, but don't let my Chu family suffer too much." Chu Xiu nodded and said, "I understand. Then, father, I will deal with this matter. I will absolutely not let my Chu family suffer a loss." After saying that, Chu Xiu directly turned around and left. The others looked at Chu Xiu with a strange expression. At this time, Chu Xiu actually dared to challenge Chu Zongguang. This was simply unimaginable for Chu Kai and the others. However, in fact, Chu Xiu succeeded. This also made people see that he was different from Chu Kai and the others. Although they were all Chu Zongguang's sons, Chu Kai and the others all relied on Chu Zongguang. Without Chu Zongguang, their own ability was limited and they couldn't raise any waves. Only Chu Xiu could ignore Chu Zongguang's attitude, because he had the ability, and the Chu family also needed his ability. This was the reason why Chu Xiu dared to challenge Chu Zongguang. Of course, Chu Xiu's action also angered Chu Zongguang. Originally, he didn't like Chu Xiu very much. Chu Xiu didn't like him. Xiu Xiu. After all, the position, Chu clan's position, Chu would. The position. Chu Zai was the family. After leaving the Chu family, Chu Xiu rubbed his face. He found that his plan should change. Previously, Chu Xiu was preparing to compete with Chu Xiu for the position of Chu family's successor. At that time, Chu Xiu didn't even regard the three of them as enemies. But now, Chu Xiu realized that his biggest enemy was not the three of them, but his cheap father, Chu Zongguang. If Chu Zongguang didn't want him to be the Chu family's successor, then he certainly wouldn't be able to do so. However, today's matter also allowed Chu Xiu to see something else. The Chu family was not just Chu Zongguang alone. The other elders also had their own plans. If he killed or crippled Chu Kai and the others, then if he didn't become the Chu family's successor, then who else could he choose? At that time, it was estimated that the elders would make him the successor for the stability of the Chu family and their own interests. Just like today, the elders simply didn't care about avenging Chu Shang. They only cared about whether their own interests would suffer or not. Of course, Chu Xiu was the same. The Chu family was his first stepping stone, so his first consideration was naturally his own interests. For example, right now, he was lacking cultivation resources like blood coagulation pills. The caravan and the inns under his command could bring a lot of benefits to Chu Xiu. Moreover, with Chu Xiu's current status in the Chu family, he could have as many pills like qi replenishing powder as he wanted. However, pills like blood coagulation pills were not enough. Pills were also divided into 9 revolutions. Things like qi replenishing powder were not even at the first revolution, while blood coagulation pills were at the second revolution level. After taking back the caravan, Chu Xiu directly took the caravan to the Shangmang Mountain. He took out 10,000 taels of silver from the Chu family's accounts and threw it to Han Bao. It was a condition of reconciliation between the two sides, but in fact, it was Chu Xiu thanking him for helping him kill Chu Shang. In any case, the Chu family's caravan could still freely walk around the Shangmang mountain. This also greatly increased Chu Xiu's prestige in the Chu family. A month later, the inner residents of the Chu family finally calmed down. Chu Shang was already crippled. Because of the trouble he had caused, even Chu Zongguang was somewhat dissatisfied with him. He only came to see him twice and did not come again. Chu Kai, the eldest son of the Chu family, was happy to see this happen. His fourth brother actually stood on his third brother's side. Now that he was crippled, his third brother Chu Sheng and second madam were probably regretting their decision. They had spent a lot of money to win over Chu Shang and his mother, but in the end, not long after, Chu Shang was crippled. Their money was naturally wasted. In fact, Chu Shang and his mother indeed felt this way. In the courtyard, second madam and Chu Sheng's expressions were somewhat gloomy. Second madam sighed and said, "We miscalculated. If I had known this would happen, I would have roped in Chu Xiu. Now that your fourth brother is crippled and has provoked the master's disgust, he no longer has any power to speak in the Chu family. On the other hand, Chu Xiu is a bigger threat to you than Chu Kai." Chu Sheng nodded and said, "Mother, we have to think of a way. If this continues, Chu Xiu's prestige in the family will increase, and the power in his hands will also increase. I really won't have any chance." In the past, how could Chu Sheng compete with Chu Kai for the position of the successor of the family? That was because Chu Kai's ability was not good. Except for his age and identity as the eldest son, Chu Sheng thought that he was not inferior to him in any way. But now, another Chu Xiu had popped out. He wasn't the eldest son either, but he was stronger than him. This was something that everyone in the Chu clan could see. In this way, his advantage had become the one with the least. Second madam's eyes showed a trace of coldness. She said, "Now Chu Xiu is in the limelight. Xing'er, no matter how much business you hold in your hands, you can't surpass Chu Xiu in a short time. Since you can't surpass him, you can only let him fall." Chu Sheng hurriedly asked, "Mother, do you have any ideas?" Second madam shook her head and said, "I can't think of anything for the time being. You know the master, he hates people who make trouble for him the most, so this matter can't be done in the Chu family. I am going to meet someone first." Chu Sheng asked, "Who?" "Your maternal grandfather, Ding Kaisheng." Within the Tongzhou prefecture, the Shun, Chu, and Li families were the three deeply rooted families. But similarly, the three family heads weren't the only famous martial artists in the Tongzhou prefecture. Ding Kaisheng was one of them. Ding Kaisheng's opening mountain martial school had already been in the Tongzhou prefecture for over 10 years. He was old, and although he had the strength of the peak of the blood condensation realm, it was basically impossible for him to break through to the Xiantian realm in this lifetime. However, Kaishan Martial Arts School had taught many disciples in Tongzhou Prefecture for so many years. Some of these people wandered in Jianghu outside, some mingled in Tongzhou Prefecture, and some directly joined the three families in Tongzhou Prefecture. With this kind of relationship, Ding Kaishan could be said to be quite popular in Tongzhou Prefecture. He could do well wherever he went. At this time, within the opening mountain martial school, Ding Kaishan was sitting opposite the second madam, talking. Ding Kaishan was currently in his 60s. He wore a cyan robe, and his 3 long strands of beard were meticulously combed. His face was dignified. What attracted the most attention were his hands. His joints were thick, but his skin was delicate, white with a hint of red. They didn't look like the hands of an old man, and they didn't even look like the hands of a martial artist. The second madam had a worried expression as she recounted the matter to Ding Kaishan. She sighed and said, "Father, your daughter really has no other choice. That's why I came to beg you. Originally, your grandson was almost certain to inherit the position of the Chu family's family head. But now, a Chu Xiu suddenly appeared and blocked his path." Ding Kaishan shook his head and said, "Daughter, I told you at the beginning that although Qin Fan, the bastard son of the Ludong Prefecture's Qin family, is born of a concubine, he has a tenacious will and does things in a magnanimous manner. One look and you can tell that he is not an ordinary person. I originally wanted to marry you to him, but you disliked Chen Fan's background and insisted on marrying that Chu Zongguang. But now? That Chen Fan indeed can't compare to Chu Zongguang, the Xiantian martial artist and the family head. But later on, Chen Fan caught the eye of our Wei Prefecture's Azure Water Sword sect and was accepted as a disciple by one of the elders. His strength has already surpassed the Xiantian realm and reached the third realm of the 5 levels of qi control, the realm of condensing the top 3 flowers. Although Chen Fan's status is still a bit lower than that of the Shen family's shocking talent, Shen Bai, who was accepted as the last disciple of the Azure Water Sword sect leader, he is still considered a direct disciple of the Azure Water Sword sect. But look at that Chu Zongguang. When he first came to the Tong Prefecture, he was already at the Xiantian realm. In the end, more than 20 years have passed and he is still at the Xiantian realm. The Chu family has also been run half dead by him. Such a large family business has been wasted. The second madam's face also revealed a trace of regret. But now that so many years have passed, regret is useless. Father, I came to ask for your help. What's the point of saying all this? Moreover, if your son can inherit the Chu family in the future, your Kai Shan martial dojo will also receive the Chu family's full support. Who knows, it might become a famous martial dojo in the entire Wei Prefecture. Ding Kaishan rolled his eyes and said, "Forget it, I can't live to that day. Chu Zongguang is only 50 years old this year. With his strength, if there are no accidents, it won't be a problem to live for another 20 or 30 years. By the time his son inherits the position of the family head, I reckon that I will already be in the grave. Let me think of a way for you so that you don't have to go through all the trouble of marrying into the Chu family, only to end up with nothing." Chapter 23. After all, the second madam of the Chu clan was just a woman. Although she was vicious, she could stir up trouble within the Chu clan. Outside, she was far from enough. Ding Kaishan, an old fox who had been in the Tongzhou prefecture for decades, was the best choice. Ding Kaishan pondered for a moment, then said, "According to what you said, Chu Xiu's influence has already been established. He only needed a few things to completely establish his position in the Chu clan. Sheng Zi is not the eldest son, and he is not very favored by Chu Zongguang. Against Chu Xiu, he cannot gain any advantage within the Chu clan. Therefore, I only have one idea. We can only use external means to deal a blow to Chu Xiu." The second madam sighed. "But I am just a woman, and I have some influence within the Chu clan. I can't interfere with outside matters. That is why I came to beg you, father." Ding Kaishan stroked his long beard. "There is always a way. I just remembered that Chu Xiu's caravan recently received a big deal. I have a disciple who works as an escort. When he went to the Yan Kingdom last time, he happened to run into the Chu clan's caravan. I heard that the Chu clan's caravan reached an agreement with a local merchant in the Yan Kingdom to buy the refined ores produced by the Chu clan at a high price. They even paid a large deposit." The second madam said with some jealousy, "Ever since Chu Xiu came back from the Nanshan mining area, it has been like his luck has changed. He has encountered all sorts of good things." Ding Kaishan's expression turned serious as he said, "This isn't luck, but Chu Xiu's ability. Although he's currently fighting with Sheng Zi for the position of successor, you should learn from him on this point. This business has nothing to do with Chu Xiu. He has long since stopped managing the caravans, leaving it to the managers of the caravans to manage. This business was also negotiated by the managers of the caravans themselves. In the past, when the Chu clan managed the caravans, they only gave them a monthly stipend. But now, Chu Xiu is willing to give them 5% of the profits. Don't underestimate this 5%. It is precisely because of this 5% that these caravans are working so hard. The more the caravan earned, the more silver the members of the caravan would receive. Therefore, the managers of the caravans don't need Chu Xiu's urging. They spend their days figuring out how to increase their profits. The servants of the caravans don't need to be urged either. They are all very efficient, because the more they go, the more money they can get. The people in your Chu family might not have noticed these things, but you don't know that in the Tong State Prefecture, they all say that among the younger generation of your Chu family, Chu Xiu is the only one worthy. The second madam, face turned red and white. She still couldn't accept the fact that Chu Xiu was so outstanding. Ding Kaishan smiled and said, "However, no matter how outstanding Chu Xiu is, it's useless. My son is my grandson, so of course I have to stand on his side. Chu Xiu's caravan has negotiated such a large business deal. What if something goes wrong? If he can't deliver the ores on time, not only will he have to pay the deposit, but the reputation of his caravans will also be ruined. There are countless caravans between the Wei County and the Yan Kingdom. No one is willing to do business with a caravan with a ruined reputation. The most profitable business Chu Xiu has is the caravan. Without the caravan, his position in Chu Xiu's family will be ruined. You should know this very well." The second madam frowned and said, "I still can't do it. The Nanshan mining area will ship a batch of ores every month. Although Chu Xiu is no longer the manager, he is still a member of the Chu clan. If I don't give it to him, it will be me who is in the wrong and will affect the Chu clan's business." Ding Kaishan shook his head in disappointment and said, "Daughter, what did I tell you in the beginning? Don't always look at the Chu clan's small territory. Be more open-minded. Who asked you to suppress the ores? Before you deliver the ores to Chu Xiu, you can sell them to others. Isn't this the best of both worlds?" The second madam hesitated and said, "The Nanshan mining area produces refined ores. If we sell them at the highest price every month, we can make tens of thousands of taels of silver. In the past, the Chu clan kept some of these ores for ourselves and used the rest to forge weapons and sell. Who can buy so many ores in one go now? If we sell them at a low price and Chu Xiu finds out, he will report it to the master and harm the Chu clan's interests. This is the master's bottom line." It's true that Chu Zongguang didn't care much about the Chu family's affairs these past few years, but Chu Zongguang also has a bottom line. That is, no one, including his own son, can harm the Chu family's interests, otherwise they will definitely be severely punished. It was because of this bottom line that the Chu clan did not decline much in the past few years, although they did not develop. Ding Kaishan shook his head and said, "Who told you to sell them at a low price? Just sell them at the market price. If Chu Xiu sells these ores to a big businessman in Yan Kingdom, he may make double the profit, but how much money can he give to the Chu clan? At most, less than 1/3 of it. After you sell this batch of ores, give all the profits to the Chu clan and keep nothing for yourself. In this way, the Chu clan will not suffer a loss, and you will not suffer a loss, so the only one who will suffer a loss is Chu Xiu. Then who are you going to sell this batch of ores to?" Ding Kaishan said with a smile, "With your father here, with my connections, are you afraid that you can't sell this batch of ores? The close confidant of the Li clan's third young master is my disciple. I can help you pull some strings and let the Li clan buy this batch of ores. The Li clan is much better at forging weapons than the Chu clan, but they do not have ores. If the Chu clan is willing to sell, even if it is a little higher than the market price, I believe the Li clan will agree." When the second madam heard this, she shook her head directly and said, "The Li clan can't do that. When the Chu clan first established itself in Tongzhou Prefecture, the Li clan was the one who made things difficult for us the most. If we sell the ores to the Li clan, let's not talk about whether the master will agree or not, but the rest of the Chu clan will not agree." Ding Kaishan waved his hand casually and said, "You think too much. You have been so indecisive since you were a child. How can you be afraid of wolves in front and tigers behind? The Li family did make things difficult for the Chu family when they first established themselves in Tongzhou Prefecture, but that was in the past. So many years had passed, and the old man of the Li family was already dead, but the Chu family didn't take revenge on him. So you don't have to worry about this matter. As long as Chu Zongguang doesn't say anything, the Chu clan will not pursue this matter. In any case, the Chu clan did not suffer any losses in the end." Seeing that the second madam was still hesitating, Ding Kaishan's eyes flashed. "How about this? You sell the ores to me, and I will sell them to the Li clan's third young master. This way, this matter will have nothing to do with you." The second madam thought for a moment. Ding Kaishan's words seemed to make sense. In any case, her father would not cheat her, so she directly said, "In that case, I will trouble you, father." Ding Kaishan nodded and said, "That's right. How much refined ores does the Chu clan's Nanshan mine produce in a month?" The second madam thought for a moment and said, "I am a woman, so I am not too clear about this. However, it should normally be around 50,000 jin." Ding Kaishan was slightly surprised. According to the highest market price, 50,000 jin of refined ores can be sold for 50,000 taels of silver. If that is the case, the Chu clan's most profitable business should be the mine. The second madam smiled bitterly and shook her head. How could it be that easy? It is easy for people to die in the mine. Every year, our Chu clan buys a large number of prisoners from the government. Also, these ores must be refined before they can be used. 50,000 jin of refined ores requires at least 500,000 jin to be refined. The cost is too high, so the profit isn't that great. Ding Kaishan revealed a pensive expression and said to the second madam, "All right, leave this matter to me. Later, you can send someone to deliver the refined ores to me. After that, I will definitely give you more than 50,000 taels of silver. Don't worry, although Chu Zongguang is disappointing, I won't let you marry into the Chu clan for nothing. In the future, the Chu clan will belong to my grandson." The second madam left happily. Compared to the first madam, her only advantage was her background in the Tongzhou prefecture. With such a powerful external aid like Ding Kaishan, so what if the first madam came from a large clan? The clan behind her was not in the Tongzhou prefecture. Early the next morning, the servants of the Chu clan brought carts of ores to the Kaishan martial arts school. Ding Kaishan looked at the ores and asked the steward, "How many jin of ores did you send?" The steward glanced at the booklet and said, "It's 57,000 jin." Ding Kaishan raised his eyebrows and said, "Change it to 52,000 jin." The steward was startled, then he understood what Ding Kaishan meant. He smiled bitterly and said, "Dojo Master Ding, I will lose 5,000 jin of refined ores. I won't be able to explain myself when I return." Ding Kaishan waved his hand and said, "You know my identity, so you should also know who asked you to do this. Is it so difficult to change the accounts? Remember, don't talk nonsense when you return." The steward nodded quickly. Only now did he remember that this dojo master Ding was the father of the second madam. If the second madam wanted to secretly give her father some benefits, of course she wouldn't make it public. Naturally, he wouldn't need to explain himself to anyone. With this in mind, the steward immediately changed the amount of refined ores from 57,000 kilograms to 52,000 kilograms. Only then did Ding Kaishan let them leave in satisfaction. Chapter 24. Ding Kaishan had managed the Kaishan Martial Arts School in the Tongzhou Prefecture for several decades. He could be considered one of the most senior members of the Tongzhou Prefecture. Wherever he went, he could be considered popular. Even the three great clans of the Tongzhou Prefecture were no exception. The Li family's third young master's trusted aide was his disciple. After Ding Kaishan entered the Li family, he had someone report his arrival and the Li family's third young master personally came to greet him. After a while, a handsome young man in his early 20s wearing a brocade robe walked out and cupped his hands towards Ding Kaishan. He said with a smile, "Dojo Master Ding, please forgive me for not going out to meet you." Ding Kaishan quickly said, "Third young master, please don't say that. You're so busy every day, but you still came to greet this old man. It should be my honor." This young man was the Li family's third young master, Li Zhao. Ding Kaishan's attitude towards Li Zhao was very polite. Although the Li family's patriarch was dead, no one in the Tongzhou prefecture dared to look down on the Li family. Before the Li family's patriarch died, the Tongzhou prefecture's three great clans should have been the Shen family, the Li family, and the Chu family. But who would have thought that the Li family's patriarch had only just passed his 60s, even a bit younger than Ding Kaishan. Because of an accident in his cultivation, he died. At that time, the Li family no longer had a Xiantian expert. Everyone thought that the Li family would decline just like that. But who would have thought that the Li family's three sons would stand up together and support the family's businesses? Whether it was in terms of strength or methods, they were all outstanding. The outside world called them the Li family's three tigers. Among the three brothers, other than Li Zhao, who was still in the body-tempering realm, the eldest and second were in the blood condensation realm. If the three of them could step into the Xiantian realm in the future, then the Li family would be in existence that could challenge the Shen family in the Tongzhou prefecture. Li Zhao had someone bring Ding Kaishan a cup of tea. He asked, "Dojo Master Ding, did something happen for you to come find me this time?" Ding Kaishan smiled. "Third young master, do you know the Chu family's second son, Chu Xiu?" A gloomy light appeared in Li Zhao's eyes. He said, "Of course I know him. Speaking of which, I have a small grudge against Chu Xiu." In the past, Chu Xiu had killed a member of the Li family in Yuanbao town, which had disgraced the Li family. Most importantly, Li Jing had been promoted by him, which was equivalent to slapping his face. Li Zhao wanted to retaliate, but his eldest brother and second brother warned him not to act rashly after they found out about this matter. After all, the Li family didn't have a Xiantian realm martial artist. They had to keep a low profile and avoid trouble as much as possible. Although Li Zhao was young and impetuous, he wasn't someone who didn't know what was good for him. Therefore, he endured this matter. However, he still taught Li Jing a lesson and threw him to the side. He wasn't angry because Li Jing had caused trouble, but because he hadn't figured out Li Jing's strength and character after causing trouble. He was simply trash. Ding Kaishan was surprised to hear that Li Zhao had a grudge against Chu Xiu. However, he didn't ask much. He only told Li Zhao about the dispute between Chu Xiu and his grandson. Then he said, "Third young master, the ores are in my hands now. If you want them, you can take out the silver now. You don't need to be afraid of offending the Chu family. This matter is only aimed at Chu Xiu. My daughter will handle the Chu family. Your Li family won't be implicated. Now, let's see if you have the guts." Li Zhao's eyes flashed. He had heard about the infighting in the Chu family. However, his Li family was a harmonious family, so he treated it as a joke. He hadn't expected the Chu family to fight to such an extent. This was simply digging a hole for the other side, and they didn't even hesitate to take advantage of an outsider. As someone who wanted to take advantage of the situation, Li Zhao had been eyeing the refined ores of the Chu family for a long time. The Chu family was too useless when it came to forging weapons. It was easy for them to fail when forging weapons at the Second Revolution, wasting such good materials for nothing. If it was his Li family, their success rate was almost 100%, and it was even possible for them to forge weapons at the Third Revolution. Therefore, Li Zhao didn't hesitate and said, "Dojo Master Ding, I want that batch of ores. They are 57,000 jin. I will pay 70,000 taels of silver for them, 13,000 taels more than the market price. The extra 10,000 taels is a premium. As for the remaining 3,000 taels, just treat it as me treating Dojo Master Ding to a drink." Ding Kaishan laughed heartily. "Ha, good. Third young master, you are really straightforward. Just send someone to my dojo to get the ores." Ding Kaishan couldn't help but sigh inwardly as he watched Li Zhao. The people of the Li family were really good at handling matters. They were even better than his daughter. Truly, a married daughter was like spilled water. That girl was actually only thinking about whether the Chu family had suffered a loss. She didn't even ask him, as her father, if he was short of money. Since ancient times, the poor were scholars while the rich were martial artists. Ding Kaishan's Kaishan dojo had such a great reputation in the Tongzhou prefecture. Just the tuition fees for every disciple he accepted would be at least 2 taels of silver per person, and at most 10 taels of silver per person. And his Kaishan dojo had more than 100 students. On average, he would earn close to 1,000 taels of silver per month. Ding Kaishan was a martial artist after all. Although he knew that he had no hope of stepping into the Xiantian realm, he still had to buy some medicinal ingredients that could nourish his qi and blood and prolong his life. He didn't want to die so early. This was a huge expense. Ding Kaishan was always short of money. Therefore, Ding Kaishan was only prepared to give the Chu family 55,000 taels of silver for the 70,000 taels of silver. In any case, the Chu family had only recorded 52,000 jin of ores, which was 3,000 taels more than the market price. It was already enough to account for the Chu family. When Li Zhao returned to the hall, the Li family's eldest brother, Li Cheng, and second brother, Li Yun, were both inside. Seeing Li Zhao return, Li Cheng asked, "Third brother, why did Ding Kaishan look for you? He's an old fox. He won't release the eagle until he sees the rabbit. If we interact with him, we definitely won't be able to gain any advantages." Li Zhao laughed twice and said, "Big brother, you're wrong. This time, that old man Ding really came to give us benefits." With that said, Li Zhao told his eldest brother and second brother what had happened. After listening, Li Cheng and Li Yun both frowned. Finally, Li Cheng said in a low voice, "Third brother, you handled this matter somewhat rashly. We still shouldn't have any friction or conflict with the Chu family at this time. When father died in an accident, our Li family was able to persevere. Besides us three brothers working hard, it was also because the Chen and Chu families didn't make a move against us. The Chen family's patriarch, Shin Mo, had just taken over the position of patriarch and killed several elders to stabilize the Chen family's affairs. He simply didn't have the time to care about the outside world. As for that old bastard Chu Zongguang, he is always in seclusion. I don't know what he's doing, but he unexpectedly turns a blind eye to our Li family. It is precisely because of this that our Li family was able to persevere until now. If this matter really provokes Chu Zongguang, then it will be difficult to handle." Li Zhao indifferently shook his head and said, "Don't worry, big brother. Old man Ding said that this matter was purely because he wanted his grandson to seize the patriarch position. The Chu family naturally has people to take care of it. They won't provoke Chu Zongguang." Li Cheng thought for a moment and said, "Even so, I'm still a bit worried. Tomorrow, you will personally make a trip. After obtaining the ores, bring the caravan to Qingyuan town and instruct the steward there to directly forge the ores into weapons." The Li family was proficient in forging weapons. Not only did they have a shop in the Tongzhou capital, but they also had a shop in Qingyuan town near the Yan kingdom. After all, if they brought a large number of precious weapons to Shangmang Mountain, they would suffer a great loss if they were robbed once. Therefore, the weapons they sold to Yan Kingdom were usually shipped from Wei County and forged directly in Qingyuan town. It was convenient and fast. The next morning, Li Zhao brought some people to Opening Mountain Martial School to obtain the ores. At this time, Lu Yuqing of the Chu family's caravan came to look for Chu Xiu with a mournful expression. Chu Xiu was in the middle of cultivating when he was suddenly interrupted by Lu Yuqing. Chu Xiu's complexion was unkind as he said, "What happened? I left the caravan in your hands, but as soon as there is a problem, you come looking for me. What use do I have for you?" Lu Yuqing's face was sullen as he said, "Second young master, we really can't solve this matter. Young master should know about the business we discussed with a big merchant in the Yan kingdom last time, but in the end, our family sold this month's ores to someone else. Losing money is a small matter if we don't do this business, but the other party is backed by a large family in the Yan kingdom. Once we break the contract, our reputation will be tarnished, and it will be extremely difficult for the caravan to continue trading in Qingyuan town." Chu Xiu's face immediately darkened when he heard this. Were those people from the Chu clan not done yet? Who was it this time? Thinking of this, Chu Xiu's eyes faintly revealed a trace of killing intent. If these people didn't cause trouble for him, and let Chu Xiu smoothly obtain the position of patriarch and step into the Xiantian realm after obtaining the Chu family's resources, then he should have left the Kaizhou prefecture. At that time, whoever wanted to take the position of patriarch could take it. But now, these people jumped out one after another to cause trouble, and their actions were getting more and more excessive. Now, they actually didn't hesitate to harm the Chu family's interests in order to cheat him. This was simply courting death. Who did it? Lu Yuqing shivered when he felt the killing intent in Chu Xiu's eyes, and he hurriedly said, "It's the second madam. The second madam sold that batch of ores to her father, the master of the Splitter Mountain Martial Dojo, Ding Kaishan. But this lowly one heard that Ding Kaishan sold the ores to the Li family. This morning, the Li family's third young master brought people to the Opening Mountain Martial School to get the goods." Li family? A trace of confusion appeared in Chu Xiu's eyes. He had heard of the grudges between the Li family and the Chu family. In the Tongzhou prefecture, the Shen family was aloof, but the Li family and the Chu family were definitely enemies. But now, second madam actually sold the ores to the Li family. Wasn't she afraid of angering Chu Zongguang? In any case, this matter couldn't be let go just like that. Chu Xiu directly picked up the goose feather saber beside him, called Ma Qua and the others, and headed to the opening mountain martial school together. Chapter 25. In front of the opening mountain martial arts school, Li Zhao was casually instructing his subordinates to move the oars. His elder brother and the others were worrying too much. Chu Xiu was probably scratching his head as to how to deal with his own family. How would he have the time to find trouble with him? Just as Li Zhao was thinking this, he saw a young man in a brocade robe and wielding a goose feather saber at the other end of the long street, leading a group of martial artists in an aggressive manner. Li Zhao frowned and immediately recognized the person in front of him. It was Chu Xiu, whom he had seen several times before. However, the current Chu Xiu and the Chu Xiu in his impression were really two different people. His aura was completely different. Chu Xiu glanced at the carts of ores and said indifferently, "You want to leave after taking my things? Third young master Li, aren't you a little too relaxed?" Li Zhao laughed and said, "Chu Xiu, aren't you a little too arrogant? Your things? I bought these ores from Dojo Master Ding. When did they become yours, Chu Xiu's?" Chu Xiu narrowed his eyes and said coldly, "Li Zhao, since you dared to buy this batch of ores, you should know about the internal affairs of the Chu clan. There are some things that you can't meddle in. I have no enmity with you. Do you really want to incur enmity with me over this batch of ores?" Hearing this, Li Zhao's expression immediately became gloomy. "No enmity? Chu Xiu, your memory is a little too bad. Back in Yuanbao town, you killed my subordinates, which is equivalent to slapping my face. Have you forgotten this matter so quickly?" To be honest, Chu Xiu really had forgotten about this matter. At that time, he had just transmigrated, and the memories of his two lives had fused together. It just so happened that some blind people had come knocking on his door. Naturally, Chu Xiu had been a little heavy-handed. However, those people were only minor characters, so it didn't matter if they were killed. With the Chu clan's strength, the Li clan wouldn't dare to make trouble for them for a servant. However, Chu Xiu hadn't expected that those people were actually Li Zhao's people. Chu Xiu said indifferently, "They're just a bunch of unruly servants. You can't discipline them well, so I'll discipline them for you. I'll ask you one last time. Are you really not going to give me this batch of ores?" Li Zhao sneered, "My Li family spent money to buy these ores, why should I hand them over to you?" A dangerous glint flashed across Chu Xiu's eyes, but he didn't say anything. He just chuckled. But as soon as he finished laughing, Chu Xiu unsheathed his saber and slashed at Li Zhao. The saber whistled, containing a dense killing intent. Li Zhao did not expect Chu Xiu to attack so abruptly. Although he was a young master of an aristocratic family, after the Li clan's patriarch died, he had led the Li clan's men through a caravan and fought with some bandits. His combat experience was not weak. When Chu Xiu's saber slashed at him, Li Zhao directly used the long sword at his waist to block. The sword was not unsheathed, but in an instant, Li Zhao felt a strong force coming at him. The luxurious mahogany scabbard on his long sword shattered with a loud bang. Even his right hand, which was holding the sword, suddenly went numb. His body couldn't help but retreat. How can his strength be so great? Li Zhao's heart revealed a trace of shock. Both of them were in the body-tempering realm, and the Chu clan's cultivation technique did not specialize in strength. However, Chu Xiu's saber made him feel like he couldn't withstand it. But this was not the end. The goose feather saber in Chu Xiu's hand was like a poisonous tongue, emitting a cold, killing intent. The saber's aura was sinister and evil, often slashing out from unexpected places. If Li Zhao was not careful, this saber could pierce a hole in him. The blood saber scripture was originally an evil sex martial art, and its sinister and vicious nature was used to the extreme by Chu Xiu. The clanging sound of the saber and sword colliding could be heard. After more than 10 moves, Li Zhao was forced to retreat step by Chu Xiu. The Li clan's hereditary sword technique was called the Drizzle Sword. The sword technique was faintly discernible, and the sword's aura was like a continuous drizzle. But the problem was that he was being forced by Chu Xiu to the point where he could only barely defend himself. How could he use the sword technique? At this moment, a flaw in Li Zhao's body was discovered by Chu Xiu. His footsteps had already started to become weak. The goose feather saber in Chu Xiu's hand was shining with a layer of sinister scarlet color. From bottom to top, the saber slashed away Li Zhao's long sword. Just as the saber was about to reach Li Zhao's neck, a stern voice came from inside the Kaishan martial arts school. "How dare you!" Ding Kaishan's figure appeared at the entrance of the martial arts school. With a leap, he was already in front of Li Zhao. He stretched out his right hand and unexpectedly grabbed Chu Xiu's goose feather saber. His hands were originally delicate and white, but at this moment, they had become thick and jet black. The veins on the back of his hands were bulging, and it was exceptionally terrifying. When Chu Xiu's saber slashed at Ding Kaishan's hand, it actually emitted a clanging sound of metal clashing. It didn't even hurt the opponent's skin. This was the golden splitting hand that Ding Kaishan had relied on to become famous. This wasn't an exaggeration, but his hands really could shatter metal and split stone. Looking at Chu Xiu, Ding Kaishan coldly snorted, "You dare to injure someone in front of my Kaishan martial arts school? Do you still not place me in your eyes?" Chu Xiu withdrew his saber, a cold light appearing in his eyes. Just now, his saber had been grabbed by Ding Kaishan, and that huge force had actually made it so that he couldn't advance even an inch. Ding Kaishan had been in the blood condensation realm for such a long time, so he had most likely long since reached the peak. No matter how fierce Chu Xiu's blood saber scripture was, or how unexpected the Azure Dragon sleeve was, wanting to kill him now would be incomparably difficult. "Head Ding, for that grandson of yours, you've really put in a lot of effort," Chu Xiu coldly said, "but in the end the Chu family's matters are the Chu family's matters. As an outsider, if you interfere like this, you won't have a good ending." After saying this, Chu Xiu directly led his people away, very direct and efficient. Since he couldn't kill anyone, and he couldn't take anything, there was no need to waste words. But today's matter definitely wasn't over. Behind him, Li Zhao still had a face full of lingering fear. He looked at Ding Kaishan and asked, "Head Ding, what kind of saber technique did this Chu Xiu use? How could it be so evil and strange? Just now, if it weren't for you, I would have been in danger." Ding Kaishan's face was also gloomy. "I don't know, but it definitely isn't the Chu family's martial arts. Furthermore, looking at how evil and strange it is, it definitely isn't a righteous martial art." Ding Kaishan could be considered a veteran of Jianghu, and he had seen many things. A person's character and their martial arts had a certain connection. Although it wasn't absolute, there was some truth to it. For this Chu Xiu to be able to cultivate this kind of evil and strange saber technique to the point of perfection, it was clear that this Chu Xiu was definitely not a good person. Right now, Chu Xiu wanted to compete with Chu Xiu for the position of successor. The difficulty was even greater than competing with the Chu family's eldest brother. At this time, on Chu Xiu's side, Ma Kuo raised his heavy sword and mumbled, "Young Master Chu, why don't you fight with that old thing?" Although that old thing is in the blood condensation realm, from his appearance, he should be around 60 or 70 years old. If he still hasn't stepped into the Xiantian realm at such an age, then his blood qi should have already deteriorated. Perhaps you really could kill him with a single saber strike. Chu Xiu shook his head. "Don't look down on Ding Kaishan. He's managed the opening mountain martial dojo for dozens of years, so he has quite a few resources. Adding on the fact that he hasn't fought with anyone in recent years, his blood qi has been preserved quite well. He's still at the peak of the blood condensation realm and hasn't declined much. Moreover, his opening mountain martial dojo has over 100 people. If we really fight, the dozen of us won't be enough." When martial arts reached the pinnacle, it was possible for one person to fight against 10,000, or even 100,000. The strongest people in Jianghu could fight against an entire army, but for a martial artist of Chu Xiu's level, this kind of realm was simply a legend. At this time, a cold light flashed in Chu Xiu's eyes. But even if we can't kill him this time, it doesn't mean we can't in the future. Since that old thing Ding Kaishan doesn't want to retire peacefully and wants to get involved in this matter, then I'll let him retire ahead of time. Chu Xiu turned to Ma Kuo. You take the people back first. Ma Kuo was puzzled. Young Master Chu, where are you going? Of course I'm going back to the Chu family. That mother and son Chu Sheng actually sold the Chu family's resources to outsiders. I don't believe that my old man won't care about this. Chu Xiu believed that even if Chu Zongguang didn't care about the Chu family, this kind of thing was intolerable to him. Moreover, the Chu family didn't belong to Chu Zongguang alone. Chu Sheng and his mother did this kind of thing, the rest of the Chu family wouldn't allow it. Therefore, when Chu Xiu returned to the Chu family, he immediately asked Steward Qin to inform Chu Zongguang, and also alerted the other elders and stewards of the Chu family. In the Chu family's meeting room, Chu Xiu stood in the center and told the story. His face was full of grief and indignation. Father, elders, when the Chu family first came to Tongzhou Prefecture, we went through hardships to resist the suppression of the Li family and finally established a foothold in Tongzhou Prefecture. But now, someone betrayed us and sold the Chu family's resources to the Li family. This is simply digging up the foundation of the Chu family. The elders of the Chu family looked at each other, but no one said anything. Chu Xiu's performance was impassioned, as if he had a big grudge against the Li family, but these wily old foxes wouldn't believe it. When the Chu family was going through hardships, Chu Xiu hadn't even been born yet. Why was he so sad and indignant now? However, if what Chu Xiu said was true, that Chu Sheng and his mother sold the refined ores of the Chu family to the Li family, then this was indeed a big deal. They couldn't tolerate anything that harmed the interests of the Chu family. There was a hint of joy in the eyes of the Chu family's first madam and Chu Kai. Anyway, they were happy to see Chu Xiu and Chu Sheng fight to the death. It would be good if both sides suffered. Chapter 26. The atmosphere in the Chu clan's conference hall became oppressive. Chu Zongguang frowned. He hated this sort of thing the most. He knew what Chu Xiu was thinking, but if Chu Sheng and his mother really did such a thing, he would definitely not tolerate it. Chu Zongguang looked at Chu Sheng and his mother and said, "Did you really do this?" Second madam stood up and said with a wronged expression, "Of course not. Others might not believe me, but do you not believe me? Why would I do something that would harm the interests of Chu clan? I did sell the ores, but I sold them to my father." Chu Zongguang frowned and said, "Then how did the ores end up in Li clan's hands?" Second madam said, "My father's Kaishan martial school needs a batch of weapons. In the entire Tongzhou prefecture, only Li clan's weapons are the best. However, Li clan's weapons of Third Revolution and above are directly forged in Yan country's Qingyuan town. Those are the real treasures. Coupled with my relationship, even if Li clan has some treasured weapons, they will not sell them to my father. So my father could only think of a way to sell the ores to Li clan. Only then did Li clan agree to forge weapons for him. But as a member of Chu clan, even if Ding Kaishan is my father, I will not harm the interests of Chu clan." Second madam directly took out a banknote and handed 55,000 taels of silver to Chu Zongguang. She said with an aggrieved expression, 52,000 jin of ores, according to the highest market price, it is only 52,000 taels of silver. But here is an extra 3,000 taels of silver, even more than the highest price. Although Chu clan's ores can be sold to Yan country, this batch of ores is only enough for a caravan to travel once. I directly sold it to my father, saving the caravan time. Isn't this good? Moreover, master, don't forget that when Chu clan first came to Tongzhou prefecture, my father helped Chu clan a lot. Even if there is no merit, there should be hard work, right?" Seeing second madam finish her act, Chu Xiu suddenly frowned. It seemed that second madam was not unprepared. She had even thought of an excuse. But no matter how she found an excuse, it would not change the fact that the ores had fallen into the hands of Li clan. Would Chu Zongguang choose to ignore it? But the result was that after seeing the banknote, the elders of Chu clan did not say anything. In any case, Chu clan did not lose anything this time. Chu Zongguang frowned. Second madam brought Ding Kaishan out, making it difficult for him. After all, Ding Kaishan had contributed a lot to Chu clan's success in Tongzhou Prefecture. Although the Chu family had compensated Ding Kaishan a lot, Chu Zongguang couldn't bring himself to scold his father-in-law. So he Chu Zongguang called. Chu Zongguang Chu Xiu, Zidi said. Chu Xiu, clan, Chu clans the clans. Li of clan, clans, Chu Xiu, Li of Chu clan is, Chu of. After all, the Li clan is not on the same side as us. I will let it go this time, but if you have anything to do with the Li clan again, I will not let you off easily. After saying that, Chu Zongguang dismissed the crowd and left. Chu Xiu and his mother left. Before Chu Sheng left, he gave Chu Xiu a proud smile, but Chu Xiu was still expressionless. Chu Xiu had the urge to curse at Chu Zongguang's decision today. Chu Zongguang could not believe that the Chu clan could fool Chu Zongguang into giving money to his enemies. After leaving the Chu clan's mansion, Chu Xiu walked back. Seeing Chu Xiu, Ma Kuo asked with a smile, "Young Master Chu, did your father punish the mother and son heavily?" Chu Xiu shook his head, which stunned Ma Kuo. He said in disbelief, "Your father doesn't even care about this. What is he thinking?" Even a rough man like Ma Kuo knew that what Chu Sheng and his mother had done was a big taboo. Internal strife was not a problem. Not to mention a small family like the Chu clan, even the top families in Jianghu fought fiercely against each other. Almost every generation's successor, unless one of them was able to suppress the others, would see bloodshed. But the problem was that internal strife had to be done without harming the interests of the family. Although Chu Sheng and his mother had used sophistry and money to prove that they had not harmed the interests of the Chu clan, they had harmed Chu Xiu's interests. Chu Xiu used an outsider to harm his own people. Wasn't Chu Xiu a member of the Chu clan? Chu Xiu said with a gloomy face, "I don't know what my father is thinking right now, but this matter is definitely not over. Get people to prepare, I want to make a move on Li Zhao." Ma Kuo was confused. "You want Boss Han to do it?" Chu Xiu shook his head. "No, we will do it ourselves. This time, not only do I want to deal with Li Zhao, but I also want to force the Chu clan. Otherwise, I will never be able to become the successor of the Chu clan." Now Chu Xiu could see that Chu Zongguang didn't like him. Even though his favorite son, Chu Shang, had been crippled, Chu Zongguang still didn't like him. The people in the Chu clan were even more short-sighted. They were all focused on their own interests. Chu Xiu didn't have the patience to waste time with them anymore. If he wanted to get the position as soon as possible, he had to either get rid of Chu Kai and Chu Sheng, or he had to make an unparalleled contribution. Only then would he be able to get the position. Right now, the Li clan was such an opportunity. Killing Li Zhao was just a prelude. Chu Xiu's real plan was to destroy the Li clan. In the past, the Li clan and the Chu clan had so many conflicts. If Chu Xiu could completely destroy the Li clan, no one would be able to match his contribution. Although Chu Xiu wasn't as strong as the Li clan, Chu Xiu was confident that he could leverage the power of the entire Chu clan through this matter. Ma Kuo shrugged. In any case, they were using Chu Xiu's money to do things for Chu Xiu. Naturally, whatever Chu Xiu said was the law. Moreover, they were cooperating well with Chu Xiu. If Chu Xiu could become the successor of the Chu clan, he would have enough power in his hands. This would actually be beneficial to them. "Young Master Chu, do you know which route the Li clan's caravan is going to take? If you can't find out, I will ask Boss Han to keep an eye out for you." Chu Xiu shook his head. A strange look flashed in his eyes. "No need, I have my own way." Saying this, Chu Xiu called Gao Bei and asked, "Help me keep an eye on Li Jing's situation. Tell me about him." If Li Zhao hadn't mentioned this before, Chu Xiu would have almost forgotten what happened in Yuanbao town. But now that Li Zhao suddenly mentioned it, Chu Xiu suddenly had an idea. Li Jing was actually only a small figure in the Li clan. Although he was appreciated by Li Zhao, he was only a servant, not even a steward. His situation and whereabouts were not a secret. At this time, Li Jing was drinking in a small tavern. If a member of the Li clan like Li Jing drank in a tavern owned by a member of the Li clan, he would naturally get a discount. But now, he deliberately avoided these places and chose a small tavern owned by an ordinary merchant. This was because he didn't want the other servants of the Li clan to laugh at him and mock him. Li Jing was an ambitious person. He had been since he was young. Although he was a servant of the Li clan, he wasn't willing to be a servant for the rest of his life. There were many people with such ambitions, but most of them were daydreaming. But Li Jing was different. He was the kind of person who dared to do it, so he worked very hard in the Li clan and worked very hard. Although he didn't want to be a servant, if he couldn't even be a servant, how could he become a person above others? With this thought in mind, Li Jing used a very short time to stand out from a group of servants and gain the appreciation of third young master Li. But the experience in Yuanbao town was like a nightmare that directly destroyed everything for him. Li Tong, the steward of the Li clan, was humiliated by Chu Xiu because of his involvement. So when he returned to the Li clan, he vented his anger on him. Third young master Li also reprimanded him because he caused trouble outside and was not reliable enough. Although it was just a reprimand, in reality, it also meant that he was hated by third young master Li. So during this period of time, Li Tong mercilessly made things difficult for him in the Li clan. No one in the Li clan was willing to stand up for him. Now, Li Jing didn't know who he should hate. Should he hate Chu Xiu for the humiliation, or should he hate Li Tong for bullying the weak and fearing the strong, so he didn't dare to find trouble with Chu Xiu and could only vent his anger on him? Or should he hate Li Zhao for mercilessly abandoning him? Just when Li Jing was a little drunk, a person suddenly walked out from beside him and said, "Li Jing, my young master invites you over. Keep your voice down and don't shout." With that, the person directly placed his hand on Li Jing's shoulder. The force immediately made Li Jing understand that he couldn't resist. This immediately made Li Jing sober up a lot. He whispered, "Who is your young master? I'm just a small character who can't be seen in public. Why is he looking for me? You'll know when you get there." The person directly threw a piece of silver and took Li Jing out of the tavern. However, they didn't go far and directly brought him to the second floor of an inn. When the door was opened, there was only a young master in a golden brocade robe. On the table was a goose feather knife, a plate of salted peanuts, and a pot of yellow wine. The moment he saw this person, Li Jing's eyes were immediately filled with shock. "Chu Xiu, it's actually you." Chapter 27. Of course, Li Jing hated Chu Xiu. If Chu Xiu hadn't stolen his secret box back then, how could so many things have happened? But after the hatred, a trace of fear rose from the bottom of Li Jing's heart. Tongzhou Prefecture was only so big. Even if something big or small happened, it couldn't be kept a secret. He already knew what Chu Xiu had been doing during this time. The things that the second young master of the Chu family, who had been regarded as trash, had done during this time were very surprising. He was even said to be the only one among the 4 young masters of the Chu family who could stand shoulder to shoulder with the 3 tigers of the Li family. Anyway, no matter what, Chu Xiu's status was not something he could compare with. What happened last time also made him realize clearly that a servant would always be a servant. Even if he had the support of the 3rd young master of the Li family, as long as he fell out of favor, his status was even lower than that of the lowest servant in the Li family. Looking at Li Jing's nervous and fearful expression, Chu Xiu had the door closed, pointed to the chair on the table, and said lightly, "Sit." Chu Xiu didn't rush Li Jing as he took his time to sit down. He just chewed on the peanuts and took a sip of the yellow wine from time to time. When the atmosphere was extremely stifling, he said faintly, "Do you hate me very much now?" Li Jing lowered his head and didn't speak. Chu Xiu didn't care about him and said directly in a low voice, "It's natural for you to hate me. I can also see that you are not a person who is willing to live an ordinary life, but I heard that ever since that incident, you haven't been living well." Li Jing smiled bitterly and said, "Isn't it all thanks to you, young Master Chu Xiu? Right now, young Master Chu Xiu is an outstanding disciple of the Chu family's younger generation. I'm just a servant of the Li family who has lost power. Even if young Master Chu Xiu wants to kill me now, I don't think the Li family will stand up for me. Chu Xiu raised his eyebrows and said, very clearly, the most important thing for a person is to recognize their own position. It's a pity that many people don't recognize this point. It was the same for you in the past, but now you've improved a little. Li Jing looked at Chu Xiu in confusion. He thought that Chu Xiu wanted to retaliate against him, but now it seemed that it was not the case. Moreover, if Chu Xiu really wanted to take revenge on him, he wouldn't have been able to survive in Yuanbao town. So why did he bring him here today? Just as Li Jing was feeling puzzled, Chu Xiu, who was opposite him, threw out a booklet and said calmly, Chu Clan's secret technique, Barbaric Bull Force, a first transition inner force skill. Although its level is a little low, its effect in tempering your muscles, bones, qi, and blood is not bad. At the very least, it can help you get started in martial arts. As he spoke, Chu Xiu threw out a bag of medicinal powder and a bottle of medicinal pills and said, 10 portions of qi replenishing powder. You should have heard of this name before. However, with your monthly salary in the Li clan, you can only afford 1 portion a year. There are 3 blood coagulation pills in the bottle. You should know what they mean by the name. With your status, this is something that you can't buy even if you have money. Looking at the 3 items on the table, Li Jing's eyes widened. His eyes revealed a look of desire. To an ordinary martial artist, these things were very ordinary. But to a servant like Li Jing who had only learned some ordinary martial arts and had just stepped into the body-tempering realm, these things were an opportunity. An opportunity for him to truly become a martial artist. Chu Xiu pushed the 3 items towards Li Jing and said in a deep voice, I want the route of Li Zhao's next business trip and the strength of his team. The more detailed, the better. You must tell me the day before he leaves. Hearing this, Li Jing suddenly trembled. He suddenly remembered something. Yesterday, the 3rd young master seemed to have had a conflict with Chu Xiu. Although he did not know the details, it seemed that they had fought. Thinking of Chu Xiu's current actions, it was not difficult to guess what he was trying to do. Li Jing's mouth twitched and he said with difficulty, but, no buts. Chu Xiu interrupted Li Jing rudely. He pushed the goose feather saber in his hand forward and placed it beside the cultivation method and medicinal pills. You only have 1 chance, and the right to choose is also only 1 time. Li Jing gritted his teeth. Without another word, he hurriedly put the cultivation method and medicinal pills into his arms and staggered out of the inn. Ma Kuo walked out of the room next door. He grabbed a handful of peanuts from Chu Xiu's plate and stuffed them into his mouth. He chewed as he asked, Young Master Chu, how do you know that this guy will do it? What if he leaks it to the Li family? Chu Xiu said indifferently, a person's ambition is very scary. Don't think that Li Jing is a servant. He is definitely not the kind of person who is willing to submit to others. He has no loyalty to the Li clan. What I gave him is a reason for him to leave the Li clan, or rather, betray the Li clan. Ma Kuo shook his head in confusion. People's hearts are really complicated. I was just an ordinary cowherd in Dai County in the north. My biggest wish in my life was to eat beef. If it weren't for a group of bastard soldiers who killed my cow and forced me into a dead end, how could I go up the mountain and become a bandit? But it's not bad. Now I can eat beef whenever I want. I'm sick of it. Chu Xiu pushed the rest of the peanuts to Ma Kuo and walked out with the knife. He said lightly, it's the same principle. There are only 2 things a man wants in life, to eat meat and to eat better meat. Ma Kuo scratched his head. He felt that Chu Xiu's words were a little strange. Suddenly, Chu Xiu said, oh right, since you said you're sick of eating beef, I'll tell the manager of the restaurant that he doesn't have to send you beef every day. Ma Kuo's face fell. He hurriedly said, Young Master Chu Xiu, I'm just joking. Don't take it seriously. If I don't eat meat, how could I have the strength to kill the Li family people? After nightfall in the Li clan's manor, Li Zhao proudly said to his eldest and second brothers, I told you that this matter isn't that big of a deal. The Chu clan's internal strife has already become a habit. They're just dragging their own people down, so they won't bother with us. Li Yun, the second brother of the Li family, suddenly said, Third brother, I heard that you fought with Chu Xiao. Did you lose? Li Zhao's face darkened. He nodded and said, yes, I lost. Chu Xiao is a bit strange. Judging from his strength, he should be at the peak of the body-tempering realm, but his strength is frighteningly high. Also, his saber skills are very evil. They are fierce and ruthless. I didn't even have the chance to fight back. I also feel that he didn't use his full strength. In any case, Chu Xiao needs to be taken seriously. The Chu family has many pieces of trash. I didn't expect that the most trash of them would be able to turn things around after a trip to the Nanshan mining area. Li Qing thought for a moment and said, tomorrow when we leave for the Yen Kingdom, have Uncle Zhong go with you. In the past, when the Li family was at its peak, they were much stronger than the Chu family. They had 6 blood condensation experts. Unfortunately, after the death of the Li family's patriarch, many of those experts ran away. Only Uncle Zhong remained. This was because Uncle Zhong had been surrounded by bandits and heavily injured. It was the patriarch of the Li family who had saved him. That was why he was so grateful to the Li family for saving his life. He became the Li family's housekeeper and changed his name to Li Zhong. Even in the Li family's most difficult times, he had never abandoned them. Li Zhao was flabbergasted. There's no need. Shangmang Mountain already has a rule. As long as you pay the toll, you can go. Is there a need for Uncle Zhong to go with me? Li Cheng said, listen to me. It's just to be safe. Hearing his big brother say this, Li Zhao didn't continue arguing. He nodded and said, fine, I'll go make some preparations and decide on the route for tomorrow. Once Li Zhao had finished making arrangements with the caravan, Li Jing, who was at the back of the crowd, revealed a gloomy expression. Third young master, don't blame me. If you had helped me back then, I wouldn't have ended up like this. In Chu Xiao's courtyard, Gao Bei was holding the intelligence report that Li Jing had secretly sent to him. He said with a worried expression, young master, how about we just give up this time? The Li family's strength is too strong. There are at least 100 people traveling this time. They are all elites of the Li family. Among them is the Li family's housekeeper, Li Zhong. He is a blood condensation warrior. Ma Kuo glanced at the intelligence report and sneered, little brat, don't be such a coward. Learn from your young master. As long as you can learn 10% of what your young master is capable of, it will be enough for you to eat for the rest of your life. After mocking Gao Bei, Ma Kuo turned to look at Chu Xiao and said, young Master Chu, I will deal with the Li family's caravan for you. Although I only have a few dozen subordinates, almost all of them have seen blood. In the northern Yen region, they were not at a disadvantage when they fought against the northern Yen Imperial Army. Dealing with the Li family's caravan won't be a problem. Now it's up to you. Although the Li family's housekeeper is in the blood condensation realm, the difference between tempered body and blood condensation isn't that big. How can the housekeeper of the Li family be stronger than that old man Ding Kaishan from the mountain-splitting martial arts school? A cold light flashed in Chu Xiao's eyes. In fact, even if it was Ding Kaishan, he was confident that he could fight him. Of course, the chances of him winning were very small. His Azure Dragon sleeve only had one blade. If he couldn't injure him after one blade, then Chu Xiao most likely wouldn't have a chance. After cultivating the martial way for a few months, Chu Xiao had also gained some insights. The martial way was originally meant to kill. If one didn't rely on killing, how could one improve? Just like his father, Chu Zongguang, who had been in seclusion for over 10 years, he still hadn't achieved anything. Knocking on the scabbard on the table, Chu Xiao coldly said, the plan is as usual. Leave the city at dawn and kill the Li family's caravan. Chapter 28. The next morning, the Li family's caravan had already left the city, loaded with carts full of goods. Apart from ores, there were also other specialties from Wei County. Beside Li Zhao was a middle-aged man in his 50s. He was bald and wore a warrior's outfit. He looked calm and carried a wrought iron rod that was as thick as a forearm on his back. This man was the head steward of the Li family, Li Zhong. There were very few martial artists in Jianghu who used rods as weapons. It was not because rods were weak, but because it was not easy to make them strong. Those who used swords and sabers all took the path of sharpness. Martial artists who came from the military mostly used spears and had an unparalleled aura. Only martial artists who used rods took the path of martial arts. It was not easy to train in the early stages, and its lethality was low. It could not be compared to a sword or saber, which could kill with one strike, or a spear. However, if one used rods to the extreme, one strike could smash a person into meat paste. Its power was not inferior to other weapons. Li Zhao led his men on a small path in Shangmang Mountain. He looked relaxed. Along the way, he also asked Li Zhong for advice on martial arts. At this moment, a faint voice came from the front. "Young Master Li, are you going to leave after taking my things?" Chu Xiu's figure slowly walked out of the dense forest. Ma Kuo and the others quietly surrounded Li Zhao and his men. Li Zhao was indeed surprised when he saw Chu Xiu. However, when he saw that there were only a few dozen people with Chu Xiu, which was half of their caravan, he heaved a sigh of relief. Looking at Chu Xiu, Li Zhao sneered. "Chu Xiu, Chu Zongguang said that he would let this matter go and not let you cause trouble. But now you still dare to cause trouble for me. I think you are deliberately looking for trouble." Chu Xiu pulled out the goose feather saber from his waist and slowly walked toward the caravan. He said in a cold tone, "Chu Zongguang said to let it go, but I can't let it go." Li Zhao immediately frowned. "Force? You're courting death." Although he said this, Li Zhao still felt that something was wrong. Just now, Chu Xiu had actually called out Chu Zongguang's name. Moreover, they had very few people on their side, but this Chu Xiu was arrogant enough to think that he could rob their Li family's caravan. Where did he get his confidence from? However, since Chu Xiu had already made his move, he naturally wouldn't allow himself to be captured without a fight. Li Zhao waved his hand and said coldly, "All of you attack." As soon as he finished speaking, the members of the Li family's caravan drew their weapons from the caravan behind them and confronted Ma Kuo and his men. Ma Kuo sneered and said in a deep voice, "Little ones, after eating young Master Chu for such a long time, it's time for us to show our strength. Let young Master Chu take a good look at us. Although we eat a lot, we're still nimble when it comes to killing." As soon as he finished speaking, Ma Kuo and his group of bandits immediately started fighting with Li Zhao's caravan. Although Ma Kuo's men were few, they were all the remnants of the 36 northern bandits. Almost every one of them had taken human lives, and they had even fought with the Northern Yan army before. Although their numbers were only half of the Li families, they were still able to suppress the enemy as soon as they appeared. Ma Kuo was also fighting with Li Zhao. One of them used a heavy sword, while the other used an ordinary thin sword. One of their swords was light, while the other was heavy. In terms of foundation, Li Zhao, who was born in an aristocratic family, had the upper hand. After all, even if the Li family was a small aristocratic family, Li Zhao's training resources would not be lacking. Ma Kuo, on the other hand, was just a small character among the 36 northern bandits. However, Ma Kuo's combat experience was much better than Li Zhao's, so the two of them were evenly matched. Li Zhong jumped off his horse and took out the steel rod on his back. He looked at Chu Xiu and said in a low voice, "Young Master Chu, do you really want to go against the Li family? I know Lord Chu's personality very well. I'm sure that Lord Chu doesn't know that you dared to rob us today. If you back off now, I can pretend that nothing has happened." "What if I don't back off?" Chu Xiu said in a low voice, holding his saber. Li Zhong pointed his steel rod at Chu Xiu and said coldly, "If you don't back off today, I will have to break your legs and send you back to the Chu family. Killing you will anger Lord Chu, but this time, you disobeyed Lord Chu's order and came to the Li family to cause trouble. It's perfectly reasonable for me to cripple you." "Reasonable and reasonable, huh?" Chu Xiu drew his saber and swung it at Li Zhong. He said coldly, "It's perfectly reasonable for me to kill all of you right here." The blood-red saber was unsheathed, and its aura was incomparably violent. The cold edge of the saber seemed to reveal a sinister blood-red color. Li Zhong snorted and swung the steel rod in his hand. It was as if water couldn't get through. A series of clanging sounds rang out as the saber and the rod collided. Chu Xiu suddenly felt a powerful force coming at him, even causing his hands to feel numb. Li Zhong waved the steel rod in his hand and said indifferently, although body tempering and blood condensation are only one level apart, the difference is from the inside out. I don't know why your strength is stronger than a body tempering cultivator of the same level, but if you don't condense your blood and qi, it doesn't matter how strong your bones and muscles are. As soon as he finished speaking, Li Zhong suddenly shouted, and the steel rod in his hand smashed down with a heavy pressure. Chu Xiu's figure moved, and he dodged to the side. However, Li Zhong's steel rod suddenly trembled, and the steel rod was like a spear. It pointed at Chu Xiu 3 times, as if he was kneeling in front of Buddha. Chu Xiu hurriedly raised his saber to block, but he was forced back 3 steps by the 3 points. His arms were numb, and the blood and qi in his body were shaken, causing his face to turn red. However, Chu Xiu's eyes shone brightly. This was the power that a blood condensation cultivator should have. Body tempering was from the outside to the inside, while blood condensation was from the inside to the outside. The power of blood and qi could not be seen from the outside, but the explosive power brought by the vibration of blood and qi during a fight was extremely clear. At this moment, Chu Xiu looked at the steel rod in Li Zhong's hand, and a strange look appeared in his eyes. He said, "Subduing Tiger Demon Staff. I didn't expect Butler Li to be from the Great Light Temple, and even be a servant of the Li family." In this life, Chu Xiu did not have much knowledge, but in his previous life, Chu Xiu remembered many martial arts and secret techniques and origins. Although after his rebirth, the 2 memories merged, causing Chu Xiu's memory to be a little blurry, but after exchanging a few blows, he could already recognize that Li Zhong was using the martial arts technique that the monks of the Great Light Temple of the Northern Buddhist sect had to learn, subduing Tiger Demon Staff. In the Jianghu, there were countless Buddhist temples, but there were only 2 that truly stood at the peak, one in the south and one in the north, so they were known as the Northern and Southern Buddhist sects. Among them, the Southern Buddhist sect's Subodhi Monastery cultivated Dharma, while the Northern Buddhist sect's Great Light Temple tempered the body. The Great Light Temple's introductory technique was the subduing Tiger Demon Staff and the Vajra Arhat Fist. It was no wonder that Li Zhong was bald and used a steel rod, which was rarely used in the Jianghu, as a weapon. He was actually from the Great Light Temple, one of the top sects in the Jianghu. This was somewhat out of Chu Xiu's expectations. Li Zhong said calmly, "In the past, I was just a monk in the Great Light Temple who didn't even have a Buddhist name. I didn't dare to call myself a disciple of the Great Light Temple, and I didn't want to embarrass the Great Light Temple. Chu Xiu, since you already know my background, are you still going to stubbornly persist?" Stubbornly persist? A set of subduing Tiger Demon Staff can't scare me. As soon as he finished speaking, Chu Xiu directly pressed forward. He performed the blood saber technique in an extremely sinister manner, and the blade slashed out from unexpected places, all attacking Li Zhong's fatal spots. However, the disciples of the Buddhist sect valued their foundation the most. Even though Li Zhong was just a monk in the past, he had immersed himself in the introductory technique of subduing Tiger Demon Staff for decades. His defense was watertight, and he didn't give Chu Xiu any chance to get close to him. Li Zhong's expression became solemn at this moment. Chu Xiu's saber technique was extremely sinister and strange. Even he had to focus all his attention on defending. Otherwise, once Chu Xiu got close to him, he wouldn't be able to use his steel rod, and that would be terrible. However, at this moment, the situation on Ma Kuo's side changed. The bandits under Ma Kuo were basically slaughtering the people from the Li family's caravan, and Ma Kuo himself had the upper hand in the battle against Li Zhao. Seeing that Li Zhao was about to lose, the scene made Li Zhong a little anxious. The subduing Tiger Demon Staff could attack and defend at the same time, and it was incomparably stable. However, at this moment, Li Zhong couldn't stabilize himself. If this dragged on, Li Zhao would be in danger. Therefore, after Li Zhong deflected Chu Xiu's saber, his staff technique changed from defense to offense, and with a loud bang, it smashed towards Chu Xiu. Earth-splitting subduing devil. Chu Xiu's eyes narrowed, and the goose feather saber in his hand deflected the steel rod, causing it to hit the ground a few inches deep, creating a small pit. The blood-red blade followed the steel rod, and with blinding sparks, it slashed towards Li Zhong. The ferocious blood-red killing intent was approaching, but Li Zhong seemed to have expected this. He let go of the steel rod, crossed his fists, and smashed it towards Chu Xiu's head like a Buddha seal. Vajra, subduing devil and punishing evil. Li Zhong had been immersed in not only the subduing tiger demon staff for decades, but also the Vajra Arhat fist. However, at this moment, Chu Xiu didn't dodge. He leaned forward and let the fist hit his chest. A flash of silver light flashed across his sleeve, and in an instant, it filled Li Zhong's eyes. The azure dragon in the sleeve was unsheathed. Li Zhong didn't expect Chu Xiu to be hiding a saber that was extremely fast. By the time he reacted, his eyes were already filled with silver light from the saber's edge. Then he saw blood. It was his own blood, and a headless corpse fell to the ground. Chapter 29. Chu Xiu stood still with his saber in his hand. Blood flowed from his mouth uncontrollably. He touched his chest. There was a sharp pain coming from there. He was afraid that a few of his bones had been broken. However, looking at Li Zhong's headless corpse in front of him, Chu Xiu sighed in his heart. This time, he had won by a hair's breadth. Li Zhong was stronger than he had imagined. Originally, Chu Xiu had thought that Li Zhong was just an ordinary martial artist. Who would have thought that he was a disciple of the Great Light Temple? Although he was just a monk in the Great Light Temple, he was still a monk in the Great Light Temple. He was very familiar with the taming tiger stick, and Chu Xiu could not find any loopholes in it. If the fight had continued, even if Chu Xiu had cultivated the Xiantian skill, he would not have been able to compete with Li Zhong, who had already stepped into the blood condensation realm. Fortunately, Li Zhong had panicked and switched from defense to offense. Chu Xiu had found an opening, and in the end, he had been injured in exchange for his life. Only then was he able to kill Li Zhong with the Azure Dragon sleeve. However, this injury was worth it. Not only had he killed Li Zhong, but when he was fighting with Li Zhong, Chu Xiu had also felt the surging rhythm of Li Zhong's qi and blood. This gave Chu Xiu a lot of inspiration. After this battle, if Chu Xiu went into seclusion again, he would not be far from the blood condensation realm. On the other side, the battle with Ma Kuo and the others had also ended. The Li family's caravan had been slaughtered, and Li Zhao's arm had been smashed by Ma Kuo's heavy sword. He was carried by Ma Kuo to Chu Xiu. Looking at Li Zhong's corpse on the ground, Ma Kuo said in surprise, "Young Master Chu, you killed a monk from the Great Light Temple. That's amazing." Chu Xiu wiped the blood from the corner of his mouth, threw a few healing pills into his mouth, and said, "You've seen a monk from the Great Light Temple?" Ma Kuo nodded and said, "Who doesn't know about the North and South Buddhist sects? Moreover, the Great Light Temple is located on the Great Light Peak in the northern Swallow Mountain County, which is not too far away from the northern 36 bandits. However, Great Leader Pang Hu and the other great leaders of the 36 great bandits of the northern lands have made it clear that we can touch the other martial arts sects, but we absolutely cannot provoke the people of the Great Guangming Temple. Those monks are not to be trifled with." As he spoke, Ma Kuo glanced at the corpse on the ground and said, "Of course, that doesn't matter. There's not even a ring scar on his head. He's not even an official disciple of the Great Light Temple." Looking at Li Zhong's headless corpse on the ground, Li Zhao's eyes were filled with sorrow. Their father had died young, and for the past few years, only Uncle Zhong had stayed by their side and protected the Li family. He did not expect that he would die here just because he had made a mistake and wanted to make an enemy out of Chu Xiu. However, Li Zhao was a man of his word. Although he was devastated, he did not yell that he would fight to the death with Chu Xiu. Instead, he said in a hoarse voice, "Mr. Chu Xiu, I and Li Zhao have lost this time. If you let me go, I'll give you whatever you want. In the future, if you want to fight for the position of the Chu family's successor, the Li family will also give you our full support. You don't have to worry about me taking revenge on you after this." Now that the Li family has suffered a great loss, even if we want to take revenge, we don't have the strength to do so. Chu Xiu looked at Li Zhao and suddenly shook his head. He said, Li Zhao, you can still stay calm at a time like this. You're quite a man, but it's a pity that you can't give me what I want. What do you want? Li Zhao struggled to ask. Picking up the dagger in his hand, Chu Xiu came to Li Zhao's side and said calmly, I want the entire Li family. Can you give it to me? I didn't pay attention to your Li family at first, but now that you've jumped out to meddle in my affairs, don't blame me for being cruel. One mistake and everything will be over. Mr. Li, have a safe journey. As soon as he finished speaking, Chu Xiu had already stabbed the dagger into Li Zhao's chest. When Li Zhao fell to the ground with a look of unwillingness, Chu Xiu pulled the dagger out. He shook the blood off the dagger and said, Take the goods and get ready to go back to the city. Ma Kuo was surprised. What about the corpses? Don't you need to disguise them? Chu Xiu's eyes showed a touch of sharpness. He said, What do you need to disguise them? I've prepared these corpses for others to see. The Shangmang mountain was huge, but there were only a few paths into the mountain. Therefore, although the corpses of Li Zhao and the others were not discovered on the first day, they were discovered by other caravans on the second day. Someone recognized Li Zhao and immediately sent someone to inform the Li family. In the main hall of the Li family, Li Cheng and Li Yun looked at the corpses of Li Zhao and Li Zhong under the white cloth. Their eyes were dull, but their hearts were filled with grief. One was the younger brother that they had taken care of the most since they were young, and the other was the old housekeeper that they had always been by their side. Although he was an outsider, he was no different from a family member. But in the end, both of them died here in one day. Who is it? Who is it? Li Yun suddenly shouted. His eyes were bloodshot, and his expression was crazed. Li Cheng's expression was gloomy, but he was not as crazy as Li Yun. He said in a hoarse voice, It's Chu Xiu from the Chu family. Someone saw Chu Xiu leave the city with a group of people yesterday, and in the afternoon he came back with carts of goods. The carts even had the Li family's insignia. But I don't understand. Uncle Zhong was there, so why did something happen? Uncle Zhong was a martial artist from the Great Light Temple. He rarely had a match in the same level. How could he be killed by a tempered body realm martial artist like Chu Xiu? Li Yun stood up and picked up the sword beside him. He was about to leave, but was grabbed by Li Cheng. What are you going to do? Li Yun shouted. Of course I'm going to the Chu family to seek justice. Li Cheng immediately snatched the sword from his hand and shouted, Second brother. Calm down. No matter what, Chu Xiu is Chu Zongguang's son. What justice are you going to seek? Will Chu Zongguang kill his son to pay for third brother's life? What we should be worried about now is the Li family itself. In the past, with Uncle Zhong's help, us three brothers were able to support the Li family. Now that Uncle Zhong is dead, will the people who have enmity with our Li family turn a blind eye? Moreover, what I'm most worried about is the Chu clan. Will they directly make a move against our Li clan because of this matter? Then what do we do? Li Cheng's expression was gloomy. Wait for the results from the Chu family before we make a decision. Although our Li family has declined, our foundation is still there. If the Chu family really dares to make a move, then our Li family will sacrifice all of our family's wealth and hire outsiders to make a move. We will definitely make the Chu family suffer a great loss. At this time, in the Chu family, such a big news had already spread throughout the Tong state capital. If the Li family could know who did it, then the Chu family naturally also knew. When Chu Zongguang heard this news, he angrily smashed his teacup and cursed, This unfilial son. Call Chu Xiu over. Chu Zongguang was so angry not because Chu Xiu killed Li Zhao. The Chu family was stronger than the Li family. Even if Chu Zongguang did not want to cause trouble and did not make a move against the Li family, the Chu family would not be afraid of the Li family. What he was angry about was that Chu Xiu did not listen to his words. He told him that this matter was over, but in the end he still acted in the dark, leading people to rob and kill the Li family's caravan. In the end, did he not put his father in his eyes at all? Chu Zongguang originally did not like Chu Xiu. What he liked was Chu Shang, a well-behaved and obedient son. Unfortunately, now that Chu Shang was crippled, his remaining 3 sons were not easy to deal with. Among them, Chu Xiu was the most troublemaker. Inside the meeting hall, Chu Zongguang, the Chu family's elders, Chu Kai, and the others were all present. Such a big matter naturally required the other members of the Chu family to be present. Chu Xiu's complexion was slightly pale. He took a Vajra-Arhit fist head-on, breaking several of his bones. This kind of injury was not something that could be healed in a single move. Seeing Chu Xiu step into the meeting hall, Chu Zongguang coldly snorted and said, "Chu Xiu, do you still put me, your father, in your eyes? What did I tell you before? You actually dared to act without my permission." Chu Xiu bowed his head and said, "Father, please forgive me. Opportunity waits for no man. I didn't have the time to report to you. But this time, I robbed the Li family's caravan. In addition to taking back my Chu family's, there was also a large amount of goods that the Li family wanted to transport to the Yan Empire. These things I am willing to hand over to the family." The eyes of the several elders present lit up when they heard this. Chu Xiu was very meticulous in handling this matter. After obtaining such a large amount of wealth, he didn't choose to keep it for himself, but instead chose to hand it over to the family. Originally, they also wanted to reprimand Chu Xiu along with Chu Zongguang, but seeing Chu Xiu being so tactful, they didn't say anything. However, Chu Kai on the side added oil to the fire. "Second brother, it's not that I want to criticize you, but the Tongzhou prefecture is only so big, and our Chu family isn't the strongest. Pulling one hair will affect the whole body. Aren't you a bit too good at stirring up trouble?" Chu Xiu lightly said, "Then according to Big Brother, do you want me to return the things, or prepare to pay with my life for Li Zhao?" Chu Kai was just about to say something, but he saw Chu Zongguang waving his hand in annoyance. "Enough, shut up." Looking at Chu Xiu, Chu Zongguang frowned and said, "This time's matter will not be repeated. The merits and demerits offset each other, but the next time you prepare to act, you must report to me. Even if I am in seclusion, you must first inform Housekeeper Chen and obtain my permission before you act." Chu Xiu obediently bowed and said, "I will solemnly obey father's teachings." Originally, Chu Zongguang's plan was that if Chu Xiu dared to talk back, he would certainly punish him according to the family's rules and properly teach this restless son a lesson. However, Chu Zongguang did not expect that Chu Xiu, who had been incomparably unyielding and dared to go against him, would become obedient this time. He took the initiative to hand over the items that he had robbed from the Li clan. This gave him no reason to be angry. At this time, Chu Zongguang suddenly thought of something and asked, "The Li family's Li Zhong was killed by you? How did you kill him?" Body tempering killing a blood condensation cultivator, this kind of thing had happened before in the Jianghu, so it wasn't strange. But those who could do this, without exception, were the elites of the large sections. Chu Zongguang's son was actually able to do this? Chu Zongguang still had some doubts in his heart. Chapter 30. In the Chu family, Chu Xiu's plan was to hide his abilities. He wouldn't hide his abilities, but he would hide his strength a bit. Hearing Chu Zongguang's words, Chu Xiu lowered his head and said, "Although Li Zhong was at the blood condensation realm, he was already old. Furthermore, my subordinates had captured Li Zhao and threatened him from the side, affecting his mind. That was the only way I was able to kill him." Chu Xiu's words were 90% true and 90% false. Although Li Zhong was indeed a little impatient because of Li Zhao's defeat, he was absolutely not to the point of being distracted. But no one had seen the scene of that battle. Chu Zongguang had also heard that Li Zhong was extremely loyal to the Li family. Even after all the blood condensation experts had left, he was the only one who hadn't abandoned the Li family. He had helped the other 3 members of the Li family support the Li family. If Chu Xiu had used Li Zhao as leverage, then killing him wouldn't have been difficult. Chu Zongguang didn't ask any more questions. He was just a bit curious. Standing up, Chu Zongguang casually waved his hand. "Alright, this matter ends here. Everyone disperse." Just as Chu Zongguang was about to leave, Chu Xiu suddenly opened his mouth. "Lord Father, Your child still has something else to say. Chu Zongguang frowned. What else do you want to say? Chu Xiu solemnly said, Lord Father, this matter is a good opportunity for my Chu family. Li Zhong's death has shaken the hearts of the Li family. At this time, our Chu family can attack the Li family. There won't even be a need for you to do anything. As long as you hand over the Chu family's experts to me, I guarantee that within 3 days, I will be able to take down the Li family. Hearing Chu Xiu say this, the Chu family's elders' eyes all brightened. In truth, they were very interested in Chu Xiu's words. This wasn't because they were loyal to the Chu family, but because the more business the Chu family had, the more power their children would have. If they really could swallow up the Li family, then their Chu family would be able to split the Tong prefecture with the Qin family. However, as soon as these words came out, Chu Kai and Chu Sheng's expressions became extremely ugly. Right now, Chu Xiu's prestige in the Chu family was already high enough. If it wasn't because he wasn't liked by Chu Zongguang, then they wouldn't need to struggle for the position of family head. If Chu Xiu really led the Chu family to annex the Li family, they would not be able to match his contribution in any case. The position of the successor of the family head would definitely belong to Chu Xiu. However, Chu Zongguang didn't express his opinion. He just frowned and said after a while, Don't always think about causing trouble. Destroying a family isn't that simple. It's not like children playing house. I won't allow this, and you're not allowed to bring it up again. Remember, without my permission, you can't touch the Li family. The elders of the Chu clan looked at each other and didn't say anything. Since Chu Zongguang did not agree to this matter, their persuasion was useless. Chu Kai and Chu Sheng, on the other hand, revealed a look of joy in their eyes. Chu Xiu lowered his head and agreed, but his eyes revealed a trace of haze. He really couldn't figure out what Chu Zongguang was thinking. Things were already clear to this point, so why wasn't Chu Zongguang prepared to make a move? Even an idiot could see that as long as the Chu clan made a move against the Li family, the success rate was almost 100%. Chu Zongguang was able to become the family head, so he naturally wasn't an idiot. But if he refused now, there was nothing Chu Xiu could do. He was the family head, and in the entire Chu clan, no one dared to disobey his orders. Chu Xiu left reluctantly, and the others also dispersed. At this time, Steward Chen stood behind Chu Zongguang, wanting to say something but hesitating. In the end, he just sighed. Chu Zongguang spoke indifferently, Old Chen, I know what you mean. In fact, if I wanted to destroy the Li family, I could have already done it when that old thing from the Li family died. Why wait until now and let that brat Chu Xiu bring it up? That thing's research has already reached a critical moment. At this time, I don't want any accidents to disturb me, especially after annexing the Li family. Our Chu clan is likely to attract the attention of the Qin clan. I don't care about the Qin clan, but what I care about is the Azure Water Sword sect behind the Qin clan. So at this time, we need to keep a low profile. Steward Chen sighed. It was because of that thing again. If the family head had given up on that thing earlier, then their Chu clan would definitely be 10 times more glorious than it was now. In fact, what Chu Zongguang said earlier was indeed the reason why he didn't want Chu Xiu to make a move, but there was another reason, and that was because he didn't want Chu Xiu's prestige to rise too quickly. For his sons, Chu Zongguang didn't expect them to be capable or strong. The only condition was that they were obedient. But Chu Xiu was the opposite. He was capable, but he was too troublesome. He even dared to challenge Chu Zongguang. This was something that Chu Zongguang absolutely couldn't tolerate. After leaving the Chu clan, Chu Xiu returned to his courtyard. Ma Kuo greeted him and asked, Is the Chu clan ready to make a move against the Li clan? Chu Xiu's face was gloomy. No, it was rejected by my father. Ma Kuo had an expression of disbelief. This Chu Zongguang was still the head of the clan. How could he not make such a decision? If it wasn't for the fact that Chu Zongguang was Chu Xiu's father, Ma Kuo would have ruthlessly ridiculed him. Alright, let's put this matter aside for now. We'll talk about it when I have time. I'm going to recuperate first. Ordinary people would need 100 days to recover from a serious injury. Warriors like Chu Xiu had strong bones and strong muscles, and he also had good healing medicine. Although it wouldn't be as exaggerated as 100 days, it would still take at least 10 days. Gao Bei walked over and said, "Young master, the goods that we took from the Li clan have been handed over to the Chu clan. We'll keep the 57,000 kilograms of ore. We'll split the money with the Chu clan after the trade." Chu Xiu nodded casually and said, "You can handle it." But then Chu Xiu suddenly thought of something. He suddenly asked Gao Bei, "What did you say just now? How many ores are there in total?" Gao Bei was stunned. 57,000 kilograms. Chu Xiu frowned and said, "Are you sure you didn't make a mistake? Or are there ores that the Li clan bought from other places in this batch of ores?" Gao Bei shook his head. "I definitely didn't make a mistake. These are all refined ores produced by my Chu clan. Young master, you didn't pay much attention to the specifics when you were at the southern mountain mining area. The refined ores produced by my Chu clan all have special markings that can be seen with a single glance." A strange light appeared in Chu Xiu's eyes. Back then, his second wife had said that she had only given Ding Kaishan 52,000 kilograms. But now there was 57,000 kilograms. Chu Xiu had been able to see through the crux of the matter with a single glance. And he still dared to say that he wasn't helping the Chu clan? Chu Xiu said to Gao Bei, "First send the ores to the Chu clan and find someone to record them. Then find a few people to inspect them before bringing them to the caravan." Gao Bei was puzzled. "We're all family, so why go through so much trouble? Leave behind some evidence." After saying this, Chu Xiu went into seclusion. This time, Chu Xiu's seclusion wasn't just to recover from his injuries. He also wanted to attack the blood condensation realm. Previously, Chu Xiu had already reached the peak of the tempered body realm and was only a step away from blood condensation. But even though he had eaten quite a few blood condensing pills, he still hadn't been able to touch the threshold of the blood condensation realm. It was only when Chu Xiu had exchanged blows with Li Zhong that Chu Xiu was able to sense the power and rhythm of his blood qi. Only then did Chu Xiu have the confidence to attack the blood condensation realm. As expected, fighting is the best method for a martial cultivator to advance. Thinking of this, Chu Xiu spent this time recuperating from his injuries while also condensing his blood qi. Unexpectedly, the speed at which he recovered from his injuries increased by quite a bit. 12 days later, Chu Xiu's injuries were completely healed. At this time, he was sitting cross-legged on the bed. The room was incomparably quiet. People with good hearing could even hear the sound of water flowing in Chu Xiu's body. This was the rapid flow of qi and blood in Chu Xiu's body under the support of internal force. The Xiantian skill's genuine qi wrapped around Chu Xiu's qi and blood. The two sides merged and moved quickly. This made Chu Xiu's body turn red, and his blood vessels and veins bulged. It was very frightening. After a long while, his qi and blood calmed down. Chu Xiu opened his eyes and felt the power in his body. At this time, he could be considered to have officially entered the blood condensation realm. On the path of martial arts, the tempered body realm was only to lay the foundation. Only when one reached the blood condensation realm could he be considered to have entered the blood condensation realm. When Chu Xiu opened the door, Ma Kuo was waving his heavy sword in the yard. Seeing Chu Xiu, he couldn't help but smile bitterly. "Child Chu, your cultivation speed really makes people jealous." Ma Kuo remembered that when he first saw Chu Xiu, his strength was absolutely inferior to his. But in such a short time, Chu Xiu had unexpectedly entered the blood condensation realm. This kind of speed could be called godlike. Chu Xiu just smiled and did not say anything. The reason why he could progress so fast was that the Xiantian skill played a great role. This secret ancient book of Haotian Taoism was indeed very good at building a foundation. Even if Chu Xiu's foundation was not good before, after practicing the Xiantian skill for a period of time, these defects were gradually smoothed out by the method. By the way, did anything big happen during this time? Chu Xiu asked. Ma Kuo scratched his head and said, "Something big? It seems like nothing big. The Li family didn't jump out to cause trouble even after someone died. What kind of big thing could happen?" Chu Xiu said lightly, "It's not that the Li family doesn't want to cause trouble, it's that they don't dare." Chapter 31. The Li family indeed didn't dare to do anything now. They were scared that the Chu family would choose to annihilate them at this time. Even the burial of Li Zhao and Li Zhong was very low-key. After waiting for more than 10 days, the Chu family didn't do anything. They finally breathed a sigh of relief. In the hall, Li Yun and Li Qing sat in the middle with a gloomy expression. The atmosphere was so oppressive that it could drip water. Li Zhao was dead. Li Zhong was also dead. The Chu family acted as though nothing had happened and didn't want to do anything to them. However, the Li family couldn't take this lying down. At this moment, a young man of 18 or 19 suddenly walked in from outside the hall. He walked in and carefully cupped his hands towards Li Cheng and Li Yun. Big brother, second brother. Li Yun frowned. What are you doing here? Li Cheng glared at Li Yun and forced a smile. Zay, what do you want? The young man lowered his head. Big brother, second brother, third brother has passed, but the Li family isn't without people. I want to come out and do something too. I want to lead the Li family's caravan to Yen again. Li Yun sneered. Li Cheng said gently, Zay, you're still young. It's enough for us to support the Li family. Your mission now is to cultivate. Only by raising your cultivation level can you come and help us. Go back and cultivate well. Don't worry, the Li family won't collapse. Li Zay opened his mouth and was about to say that Li Zhao had been leading a caravan since he was 18 or 19, but he swallowed the words back down. He cupped his hands and said, Then big brother, second brother, I'll be going now. When Li Zay left, Li Yun sneered in disdain. What is he? Does he think that just because third brother is dead, he can replace third brother? The three tigers of the Li family, even if third brother isn't here, there's no place for him. When the younger generation of the Li family was mentioned, Li Zhao and the others would be called the three tigers of the Li family. In reality, the leader of the Li family had 4 sons like Chu Zongguang. However, Li Zhao and the others came from the same mother. The youngest Li Zay was born from a concubine, so he was naturally ostracized by the three. Li Qing glared at Li Yun. Don't talk nonsense, Zay is our 4th brother no matter what. Li Yun sneered, I don't recognize him as my 4th brother. Look, third brother has only been dead for a short period of time, and he already jumped out to claim power. Does he really think he's a piece of cake? Big brother, I'm just afraid that you'll treat him as a brother but he won't. Li Qing waved his hand. Let's not talk about this for now. What do you think about third brother and uncle brother? Hearing Li Cheng's words, Li Yun's face immediately revealed a sinister expression. Of course I will. Li Cheng said in a low voice, but if we want to take revenge, we can't directly take revenge on the Chu clan. With my Li clan's current strength, taking revenge on the Chu clan is no different than a mantis trying to stop a chariot. Li Yun frowned and said, if we don't touch the Chu clan, how are we going to touch Chu Xiu? Chu Zongguang can't just watch his son be killed. Big brother, just tell me what plan you have. I'll do it. Among the 3 brothers of the Li family, the eldest, Li Cheng, was the calmest. Li Yun, on the other hand, had a fiery temper. But because of this, the younger Li Yun was stronger than Li Cheng. Most of the time, the Li family was managed by Li Cheng and Li Yun. Li Cheng said with a gloomy expression, it's not just our Li family who wants Chu Xiu dead. There are even more people in the Chu family who want him dead. How did third brother incur enmity with Chu Xiu? It's all because of the Chu family's internal strife. Now, we need to find Chu Xiu for revenge. Ding Kaishan's daughter, the second madam of the Chu family, will be very interested. Right now, Chu Xiu isn't staying in the Chu clan's mansion. As long as the Chu clan's second madam can help us stall the messenger at the crucial moment and prevent the Chu clan from knowing that we've made a move against Chu Xiu, with the 2 of us and the entire Li clan, how could we not be able to kill Chu Xiu? Li Yun's eyes lit up. Li Cheng's words were reasonable. As long as the second madam of the Chu family was willing to cooperate, how could the Li family not be able to deal with Chu Xiu? One had to know that Chu Xiu only had a few dozen subordinates. If the Li family were to find all the body-tempering realm experts, they would have a few hundred people. Li Cheng said to Li Yun, go find Ding Kaishan now and have him send a message to the Chu clan's second madam. Ask her if she's willing to help our Li clan. I'm sure she has a 90% chance of agreeing. I want to go to the Chen family to see the housekeeper, Shen Rong. Li Yun frowned. Why do you want to go to the Chen family? Li Cheng sighed. Even without Chu Zongguang's interference, we can smoothly kill Chu Xiu. But no matter what, Chu Xiu is Chu Zongguang's biological son. Even if it is for the sake of face, Chu Zongguang will not let Chu Xiu die in vain. So our Li family will definitely suffer the revenge of the Chu family. Right now, in the Tong state capital, the only one who can protect us is the Chen family. After a long silence, Li Yun said, What price do we need to pay? Li Cheng clenched his teeth. Half of the Li family's business. What? Li Yun stood up. Big brother, are you crazy? Li Cheng closed his eyes. Our Li family has already reached this point. If we don't act ruthlessly, I'm afraid Shen Rong will not agree. Moreover, Shen Rong is a greedy person. Instead of bargaining with him, it is better to feed him in one go. Housekeeper Shen's strength and ability are ordinary, but he used to serve Shen Bai and Shen Mo. His position in the Shen family is very high, and he has the ability to protect the Li family. Moreover, after giving away half of the family's business, the Li family has lost the qualification to be on equal footing with the Shen family. It is a good time to completely rely on the Shen family and become their vassal. This way, we can continue to survive in the Tong state capital. Don't feel wronged. Even if a small family wants to be a vassal of the Shen family may not accept it. Li Yun was also silent. In the past, when the Li family was at its peak, they could be on equal footing with the Shen family. But now, they had to be a vassal of the Shen family. This kind of feeling was not good. Li Cheng said, Okay, this matter is settled for the time being. Go and prepare now in case something unexpected happens. Li Yun nodded, and the two of them left together. However, neither of them noticed that in a dark corner of the Li clan's residence, Li Zhe was staring at the two of them with a sinister look in his eyes. At the same time, in the Chu family's restaurant, Chu Xiu chose a private room close to the window. He ordered a few dishes with ma kuo, and they chatted while drinking. Normally, Chu Xiu would not be so free, but he had just come out of seclusion. In the past 10 days, he had not even seen the sun. Now was the time to relax. At this time, the owner of the restaurant personally brought a roasted chicken to Chu Xiu's table. He smiled and said, Second young master, this is a golden pheasant from the barren mountains of Liaodong in the north. It grows up on pine nuts and snow water. Its meat is delicious, and because it is so fast, even some experienced hunters find it difficult to hunt it. Therefore, it is called the flying dragon. As the saying goes, dragon meat in the sky, donkey meat on the ground. The dragon meat refers to the flying dragon meat. Coincidentally, a caravan from the Yen kingdom brought a few days ago. I specially prepared this for you, second young master. Ma Kuo's eyes lit up. He tore off a leg and chewed on it. As he chewed, he muttered, Yes, this is the taste. Ever since I left the north, I haven't had this in a long time. The owner of the restaurant glared at Ma Kuo. He had never seen such an unruly servant. The second young master hadn't even started eating yet, and Ma Kuo had already started eating. Chu Xiu waved his hand casually and said, All right, you can leave now. I appreciate your kindness. Hearing Chu Xiu's words, the shopkeeper revealed a trace of joy and left. Chu Xiu tore off a piece of the chicken and tasted it. It was indeed delicious. However, just when he was about to share the flying dragon meat with Ma Kuo, the door of the private room was suddenly pushed open. A young man about 17 or 18 years old walked in with a smile on his face. Young Master Chu Xiu, you still have the mood to eat and drink here? Do you know that you are going to be in big trouble soon? Hearing this young man's words, Ma Kuo chewed on the chicken leg with a faint smile on his face. Chu Xiu patted the goose feather sword on the table and said calmly, If you're powerful, you're just being mysterious. If you're not powerful, you're just courting death. As soon as he finished speaking, there was a murderous look in Chu Xiu's eyes. The young man in front of him, who had never seen blood before, was so scared that he couldn't help but take a step back. There was a hint of anger in his eyes, but he didn't try to be mysterious anymore. He closed the door and sat next to Chu Xiu. He cupped his hands and said to Chu Xiu, "I'm Li Zhe from the Li family." Chu Xiu raised his eyebrows and said, "A collateral descendant of the Li family?" There was a hint of anger in Li Zhe's eyes. "A direct descendant? I'm the fourth son of the Li family." Chu Xiu patted his head. He just remembered that there was such a person in the Li family. However, Li Zhe's presence was too low. People always talked about the three tigers of the Li family. As they talked, they naturally ignored Li Zhe. Chu Xiu nodded casually and said, "I remember now. Tell me, what are you going to do today?" Li Zhe looked at Chu Xiu and said in a deep voice, "I'm here to tell you something, young Master Chu Xiu. My eldest and second brothers are going to set up a trap to kill you." You're tuning in to the Han Li's Immortal Journey YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.